asked to replace any hard drives or storage, or were you asked to replace the camera itself?
Just the camera.
And that was in March 7, 2023?
I don't know when.
You were asked questions about what the defendant said that morning when you were trying to help Mr. O'Keefe.
Yes.
You were asked whether you heard any comments about her, from her, about dropping John off.
Say that one more time.
You were asked whether you heard any comments about her saying she dropped him off.
In the car on the way to the hospital.
Okay.
She said it to Mrs. O'Keefe.
When you were outside trying to help John, went into 34 Fairview?
No.
Was it ever suggested that he went into any house whatsoever that morning?
No.
Were you ever asked to go into the house to look for him?
Hello, everyone. Happy afternoon. This is Wednesday afternoon. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. Thank you for joining us here. I'm not going to waste any time. We have a busy afternoon. Just like we had a busy 9 to 11 stream, we have a busy afternoon starting at 12:30. So we want to get to the first order of business. So first big news, and it came in this morning as we were wrapping up the show this morning. So Carolina Panthers. I know there are a lot of Panthers fans out there who love to go to training camp. That's one of I'm a parent, yeah. And look, I've never been to training camp.
No.
Never been. So
Usually it was in Spartanburg. It was in Walford.
it was in Walford, but a lot of fans travel to training camp there. This past year was the first time they've had it in Uptown. But I have a little bit of bad news for fans. We have to wait a year because fans will not be allowed at the Carolina Panthers training camp this year or next year. So 2025 or 2026, due to ongoing construction of the team's practice facility. The organization announced on Wednesday fans will be welcome at Fan Fest at Bank of America Stadium on Saturday, August 2nd. Ticket information for Fan Fest hasn't been announced yet, but they will announce that soon. And this is just the second time in the franchise's history the Panther fans won't be allowed at training camp. The first was actually 2020. During COVID. Obviously, folks are not allowed there during COVID. But again, the big news, I know this is disappointing, but I'm pretty sure this is out of precaution, safety concerns because of that ongoing construction at the team's practice facility. But fans will not be allowed at Panthers training camp this year or next year, 2025 or 2026.
But they can go to Fan Fest.
Fan Fest
is still at the
Fan
stadium.
Fest is
Still
pretty
fun.
cool.
Have you been to Fan Fest?
I've never been to Fan Fest.
No.
Don't take my fan card away.
I was like, you're a fan. You're like, I haven't been to training camp.
I haven't been to training
I haven't been to Fan Fest.
And
Have you been to a game?
I've been to games. I've been to Bank of America Stadium. I've been to Ericsson Stadium. That's before it was Bank of America Stadium. But so let me read a statement from the Panthers. So the Panthers, they released a statement. They said, quote, due to ongoing construction at the Carolina Panthers practice fields, the team is unable to host fans on site throughout the 2025 and 2026 Carolina Panthers training camps. The Panthers will host fans during Fan Fest at Bank of America Stadium on Saturday, August 2nd. 2025. I know disappointing news, but hey, look, let's get to some exciting news.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the draft.
Yeah.
The NFL Draft Special with Locked On Thursday, April 24th, 7 p.m.
Where dreams come true.
Where dreams come true.
Woo!
Yes. Look, who are the Panthers going to pick at 8? Number 8. The 8 pick. I don't know. I have my guesses.
You have your guesses.
I think it's going to be Jalen Walker from Georgia. I saw a mock draft yesterday. I read it off. It's something different. Edge rusher from Marshall. It could be.
You don't know this kid from Marshall. Do you know?
I'm not familiar.
No.
I didn't watch a ton of college football this past year, so I missed this kid. And that's the thing about the draft. You see these guys that are really good in college, but with college football season, you're more focused on the teams rather than individual players. And with the draft process, you get to really focus in on the players, and you're like, oh wow, that guy really had a great year. I think back to Anthony Richardson out of the University of Florida. They didn't really have a great year, but he had individually like a really good year, and he got drafted high. So you may have missed him along the way if you were watching a ton of college football. So the Draft Special with Locked On Thursday, April 24th, 7 p.m. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be fun. Nick Carboni, Danielle Stein here. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. We have live elements out there, Bank of America Stadium. I will not be out there. I have confirmed I will not be at Bank of America Stadium.
Sorry, people. Sorry, everybody.
Sorry. It's okay. Well, maybe next year. Maybe next year. All right. So we want to switch gears now. We were going to take you to Karen Reed, but it looks like they are in recess right now. This second day of that retrial for Karen Reed out in the Boston area. We've gone there a couple of times in the 9 to 11 hour. But we do want to we want to stay here in Charlotte. So RFK Jr., Robert F. Kennedy Jr. spoke today in Charlotte. I had the information up and it went away for the event that he was speaking at. Carlene, do you have that?
Not readily available. Let's see.
This is what happens on Live Impact News. We don't have the information right here, but we're going to have it. Look, I have a lot. I have 4 different screens in front of me, so sometimes it can be hard. Okay, all right, I got you. Told you I got you. Secretary of Department of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Spoke earlier, not too long ago. He participating in a summit here in Charlotte. Let's get you to that. Again, he spoke not too long ago, and that summit is happening as we speak, but we wanted to play you his speech. Let's listen in.
Thank you, Wes, and thank you all for being here. I want to just start out by giving a shout out to Wes, who's been an old friend and advisor to me, a really, really close friend, and also to Dave Ford and everyone else who put on this extraordinary gathering. You don't often see groups with such diverse stakeholders all in the same room. We have here consumer brands, petrochemical companies, health organizations, environmental NGOs, scientists, and political representatives. Gives me hope because we can all start listening to each other. And I know we can solve the terrible health crisis that's now afflicting American children. Before I begin, I also want to acknowledge our host, Atlantic Packaging, Wes's company, an 88-year-old family-owned company that employs 3,000 Americans. Atlantic shows how the private sector can lead on sustainability and on innovation. Yesterday, the FDA Commissioner, Dr. Marty McCary, and I announced that we will rid the U.S. food supply of 9 petroleum-based synthetic dyes within 18 months, with authorizations of 2 of the worst offenders to be revoked within 2 months. My experience at HHS as HHS secretary over the past 2 months, working very closely with the food industry to achieve this momentous accomplishment, has reinforced for me the critical lesson that industry, environmental advocates, and governments do not have to be adversaries. Of course, we all have our differences, but something greater unites us, and that's a concern for our children and for our grandchildren. We may not agree on what should be done, but we can all agree that something has to be done. For decades, a facade of normalcy has masked this meteoric rise in chronic disease, and we can no longer ignore it. In the last election, tens of millions of Americans didn't ignore it, coalescing under the MAHA banner. They thrust chronic disease at the forefront of the national spotlight. And President Trump paid attention. This last 2 weeks ago, President Trump passed an executive order, signed an executive order to establish the MAHA Commission. So now, for the first time, we have a popular mandate and a presidential mandate to seriously grapple with America's epidemic of chronic disease. Let me share a few statistics to illustrate the level of the crisis that we're now facing. According to the CDC, was president, it was 3%. 4 in 10 Americans, and when my uncle was president, we paid 0 for chronic disease in this country. Today we spend about $1.8 trillion a year, twice our military budget. In other words, for most Americans, 4 in 10 Americans have 2 or more chronic diseases. In other words, most Americans are sick. No other country comes close to that level of ill health. 74% of our kids cannot qualify for military service.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Right there is RFK speaking at a Chemicals Concern Policy Summit here in Charlotte. We'll get back to that speech in a moment, but we want to take you now to Lancaster, where WCNC Charlotte's Kaylin Hagwood is interviewing live a family whose house was damaged after yesterday's storm. We were weather alert yesterday, and some strong storms swept through that area. Again, Kaylin Hagwood on the ground speaking with a family whose house was damaged. Let's listen in to that.
Minutes at most. I mean, it really was so quick.
And now I can see the damage, but kind of describe to our audience what happened there.
That at the end is my bedroom where I would have normally been sitting. And the tree came down across that whole spot. There's my bathroom is gone. It's annihilated, and my bedroom is gone. It's just gone. And we went back over there, and we saw the desk where I would have normally at that time been sitting is crushed. It's annihilated. The whole area where I would have been is gone.
Where were you in the house whenever this happened?
In our living room.
In our living room up here. So luckily we were at the front of the house when it hit. But normally I'm sitting in there at my desk doing artwork, and we had come out to have dinner. Or I would have been there.
Talk to me about that, the feeling to know that this is your bedroom, and you could have been, you were just steps away.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part of everything we're dealing with right now, is that I would have been there. It would have killed me, because it crushed everything that where I was at, would have been at. So this is tough, but we're okay. And I'm trying to take that as the silver lining from all of this is that we're both all right. None of our animals got hurt. And yeah.
What about you? Are you still processing?
Yeah, still am.
I think we both are.
Yeah. Especially since it happened so fast. Definitely.
So what does recovery look like for you? Are you going to be able to get that part of your home fixed?
No, the whole house is not going to be, it's going to have to go. And we didn't have insurance, unfortunately, so I have no idea what we're going to do. The Red Cross helped us get a hotel for a few nights, but past that, I don't know what we're going to do.
How can people help you? And you can tell that information to us if it's a phone number or something in particular. I don't want you to give personal information.
Yeah, one of our best friends made a GoFundMe for us. I have no clothes.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Serderman. Right there is a live interview Kaylin Hagwood is doing with a family whose house was damaged after some strong storms yesterday there in Lancaster, South Carolina. They're describing a very scary situation. The woman saying that she could have actually died if things just didn't align correctly for her. But again, she's describing that in emotional detail. We want to come back out here live in the studio again. We're going to check in with Kaylin a little later. Again, she is following that damage there in Lancaster County. So we want to go back now. RFK Jr., we showed you this at the beginning of the show. RFK Jr. in Charlotte today, speaking and participating in the Chemicals of Concern Policy Summit being held in Charlotte. Again, this is a private invitation-only event, but we were able to be there. There's a round-table discussion happening. But we want to play you that speech. His speech from earlier was, listen in.
When in 1970, the levels of autism in this country were 1 in 10,000, and that there were study after study that showed that, including the largest epidemiological study in human history. Today, this week, we announced that the levels are now 1 in 31. 1 in every 20, and they're done state by state. So the best data gathering of any state is California. And their numbers probably reflect the actual number. Right? And those numbers are now 1 in every 20 children, 1 in every 12.5 boys. Furthermore, 43% of our kids are obese, and almost 80% are overweight. For children, a fifth are obese and a half are overweight. In Japan, the obesity rate is still at 3%, which it was when I was a kid in this country. And that's because the Japanese pay close attention to chemical exposures to their children, and Japan has an aggressive program to provide Japanese children with healthy, wholesome, chemical-free school lunches. Most heartbreaking statistics are about the health of young people. 40% of teenagers struggle with anxiety or depression. And according to the latest autism statistics, I told you 1 in 31 kids nationally now is diagnosed. Can you move that a little? I didn't memorize this speech. Okay. Anyway, I could go on, talk about the skyrocketing cancer rates in young people and falling sperm counts. Today, teenagers in this country have 50% of the historic sperm counts. A teenage boy in America has less testosterone than a 68-year-old man. Girls also are experiencing the fertility crisis. The puberty rate for girls in this country is about 6 years younger than historical levels. Girls are hitting puberty now between 10 and 13 years old. I can talk about allergies and autoimmune diseases. I don't think I can convince anyone that there's a big problem. So let's talk about the causes and solutions. What is the cause of the epidemic? I wish it were that simple, that there were just a single culprit. It would make my job a lot easier. At least it would give me somebody to blame, probably somebody in this room. But there is not a single cause. That's why the MAHA executive order directed us to investigate multiple possible causes. And the two that President Trump included in his executive order specifically, I'm going to talk about today. Absorption of toxic material and food production techniques. These are the chemicals of concern that we are gathered here to talk about: microplastics, food dyes, preservatives, PFAs, phthalates, pesticide residues, and toxic metals, just to name a few. Some of them are delivered to additives, and others make their way into food from packaging and the environment. If we care about our children's health, we have to look at all of them. Now, I bet some of you feel uncomfortable as I mention microplastics or food additives. You think that the next thing I'm going to do is to blame the petroleum industry or the food industry or the packaging industry. I wish it was that cut and dry. I wish the problem were as simple as a few bad actors. But you know as well as I do that we have been locked into a system that has its own logic. You all have reasons why you can't make changes. And those reasons are mainly valid if we take the current playing field for granted. Well, we're going to change the playing field so that we can align the creativity of business with the public interest. It won't be easy to change an entire system that is poisoning America. I don't want to drag industry kicking and screaming. I want to ask for your alliance. I want you to take the initiative to clean up our food supply. Not because you have to, but because you care. I want you to unleash your full entrepreneurial talent and ingenuity. I'm going to do my part too, and I'm going to make you a promise today. Over the next 4 years, I'm going to use every lever of power that my agency commands, and every weapon in the HHS arsenal to change the regulatory environment so that your pro-health innovations contribute to your financial success. Okay, here's some of the specific programs that we're going to implement. First, we're going to revise the generally recognized as safe process, require transparency and FDA review of food contact chemicals. Second, we're going to implement a systematic post-market review program with protocols to reassess previously approved chemicals in foods and food contact material. Third, the National Toxicity Program will expand safety assessments of food and contact chemicals, cover endocrine and neurobehavioral effects. Fourth, across the board, we will prioritize safety factors for pregnant women and breastfeeding. Fifth, we will deploy and integrate emergency testing techniques across all the agencies. Sixth, we're going to start considering cumulative and mixture effects, and we test the safety of chemicals in food, including all direct and indirect food additives, food contact substances, and ingredients. And seventh, we'll mandate the replacement of all coffee machines with kale smoothies in the nation's office. Just making sure you're paying attention. I had a hard time getting on that one by the White House. These policies, well, first six of them anyway, exemplify how the regulatory environment is going to change. If you follow the trend line, you can future-proof your business. But I want to make a further suggestion. Regulations define the bare minimum. They define what you must do, but they don't limit what you can do. So I want to encourage industry to go beyond what is required. First, because it's what consumers want. Remember, these changes aren't ultimately coming from me or from President Trump. They're coming from a mass movement of citizens and consumers. And the second reason is even more simple. It's because you care. You care about the health of your fellow Americans. You care about the health of your children. You care about the strength of our country. And you care about doing the right thing. The magic is that whenever business incentives align with our values, both of them flourish. This is because human health and environmental health and economic health are all intertwined. The answer is ultimately in free market capitalism. A true free market rewards good behavior and it punishes bad behavior. In a true free market, you can't make yourself rich without making your neighbors rich, without enriching your community. But perverse marketplace rules encourage some companies to use pollution and contamination to make themselves rich by making the rest of us poor, and by impoverishing our nation and sickening our communities. Over the next 4 years, I'm going to use all my powers to change the perverse ground rules that govern this ecosystem. Make sure that well-intentioned companies like this one can internalize their costs the same way that they internalize their profits and still prevail in the marketplace. All pollution and health-harming behavior is a market failure. It's in fact a subsidy. You show me pollution, I'll show you a company that is externalizing its costs and forcing the public to finance its success. These companies that flourish in that kind of marketplace are those that are most ingenious at devising schemes for forcing the public to shoulder the burden of their production costs and of pollution. These bad choices diminish public health and our national economy, and our individual and our national expectations. Microplastics and chemicals from fruit production assembly lines and packaging don't only end up in our food, they also contaminate our soil, our water, our oceans, and from there they re-enter the food supply. A recent study from the University of Oregon found microplastics in 99% Some of these solutions are showcased in Atlantic Packaging Showroom. We can incentivize industry to invest in sustainable packaging solutions that are non-toxic, recyclable, compostable, and to develop regulations and prevent new harmful chemicals from entering the market and break the cycle of toxic exposure. Despite all of these marketplace headwinds, some entrepreneurs like Wes, this company, have nevertheless figured out ways to do well by doing good. It was only 2 generations ago that most food and drink came in cardboard, glass, or paper, or it wasn't packaged at all. When I was a kid, most soda bottles and beer bottles were returnable. Today, only a third of glass is recycled. AI sorting technology could change all that. I think we should take a serious second look at glass. It's probably the safest packaging material, but America's glass factories have been shutting down. That's a problem, because glass is also a basic industrial material that is interwoven into the industrial supply chain. I've talked a lot about plastic, but I don't want to single them out. Toxic chemicals are a problem in other types of packaging too, like can liners and coatings of all kinds. We're going to look at them as well, but I want the consumer brands and the packaging companies in this room to get ahead of the game. Regulation is always playing catch-up. A bureaucracy like HHS can never match the innovation pace of industry. We need you on our side, and our children need you on our side. All of us need to start thinking in terms of the whole system. Current packaging technologies are a response to broken waste recovery system. It's not just toxic chemicals that leach into the environment, it's also dollars. As Wes says, each American spends $11 billion. Each year, America spends $11 billion to bury $30 billion of valuable industrial materials in the landfill. The highest point on the east coast of North America is the Fresh Kills landfill. And that's a monument to perverse incentives. Efficient waste recovery makes sustainable and healthy packaging economical. That's just one example of how health benefits connect to economic benefits. American companies are innovation leaders in advanced waste and recovery alternative packaging technologies. We can build both into a strong export industry. We can ride the wave of global consumer demand for safe, sustainable products and packaging. America used to be the healthiest nation on the planet. My mission is to unite us to achieve that status again and to lead the whole world toward better health. This is not an issue that's going to go away. Consumers are not going to stop worrying about phthalates or microplastics or PFAs. In fact, part of my job is to make consumers worry more about these things, about what's in their food, and to give them transparency and to guarantee them the information that they need to make healthy choices. Safe packaging and healthy food is the future. And after decades of neglect, the Department of HHS is in full alignment with it. Oh, I want to ask everyone here to join me in leading the charge. I appeal to your sense of patriotism to make America healthy again. I appeal to your economic interests to future-proof your business. And most of all, I appeal to your moral values to render good service to humanity and future generations. Because look around this room, underneath our affiliations with NGOs or industry or government, underneath all of our professional roles, every one of us, a parent, a sibling, an uncle or an aunt, a person who loves and who is loved in return. Every one of us is a living human being who cares about humanity. And we have gotten ourselves into quite a bind. Our children are failing to thrive, but finally, thank God, we're going to face the problem. And looking at all those gathered here today, I know that we're going to be facing it together. So thank you so much for being here, and God bless you. I want to add one thing. I think over the last 30 or 40 years, many people who were HHS secretaries who preceded me in this job would mouth these kind of words and would come and talk reassuring phrases to industry and to NGOs. and then make changes that were incremental or marginal. And I have no interest in doing that. I'm interested in a revolution. Yesterday, I hired a billionaire, swore him in to come work for my agency, and it's one of many. These people, these tech entrepreneurs are flocking to our agency, people of the highest caliber, people like Jay Bhattacharya, like Marty McCary, like Dr. Oz, and many others. They're not coming in because they want prestige, or they want position, or they want power, or they want a salary. They're coming only to do one thing, which is to revolutionize the system. So I would encourage all of you, the system in 4 years is going to be completely different. I'm not going to be satisfied, and this is what I told the food company. It was the first time I met with them. I said, within 2 years, all diets are going to be out of food. I told them a lot of other things too, and I'm going to keep my word. We're going to change things for real this time. So, and this is my legacy. It's President Trump's legacy. It's the legacy of all these people who've walked away from fortunes and going concerns, and we are disrupting this agency. We're taking it out of the hands of industry, and we're putting it back in the hands of the American people. And we are going to have revolutionary change. It's not, listening to me today, if you think that we're not serious about this, you're making a bad judgment. So, and I have a president now behind me who does not care. He doesn't care what he's been called by every soda company, by every candy company, by every processed food company. And most of the time he tells me and says, I don't care, you do what you need to do, and I'm going to block for you. So I think things are going to change, and they're going to change dramatically over the next 4 years. And I would ask your help in making this happen. If you're an NGO, you should be combing through the FDA regulations and look for places that I can act through the regulatory process, which I can do in 90 days, or through guidance, or just changing policies, which I can do with a stroke of a pen. And we'll have a big legislative agenda too, and we're I'm interested in hearing your ideas about what that includes. If you're in industry, we want to help you. My door is always open. My phone, and I will talk to you and help you and partner with you to get through this process. We want industry to thrive in this country. We need you, and we want to rationalize the rules so that they serve the public purpose, but they also allow you to do well in your business. So thank you all very much, and God bless you.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. That was RFK Jr. He spoke earlier today in Charlotte. He's at a summit right now. This comes a day after he says he plans to phase out artificial dyes from the U.S. food supply. Our own Julie Kay is there at that summit. There's a roundtable happening as we speak. She is covering that story, and we'll have more for us later on during our afternoon and evening newscast. All right, so we want to shift over now to a story that we brought you during the morning stream, but we want to update you now. We want to go over to New Jersey, where a massive wildfire in Ocean County, New Jersey, has burned thousands of acres, forced thousands of evacuations, and has closed several roads there. You see that smoke. We saw the flames earlier, a very dangerous and scary scene that we saw there. Like, you see the flames right there. So the fire began shortly before 12:30 p.m. yesterday at the Greenwood Forest Wildlife Management Area in Ocean County, New Jersey. The fire spread to Lacey Township and Ocean Township, sending massive plumes of white smoke into the air. And talking to Carlene, before we got to this, New York City is actually telling folks, hey, you might smell and see smoke.
Emergency management officials say, hey, this evening you might start to see or smell smoke. I'm actually looking at X right now, and some forecasting officials say, because of the wind shift, like the whole tri-state area might be seeing and smelling some smoke here.
And just to kind of relate it back here at home, we dealt with that with the Table Rock fire and other fire. I know there's McDowell County, there's a wildfire burning there now, but you know, here in the Charlotte area, we saw some of that smoke dripped over and our air quality be impacted by the wildfire. And it's similar case here in New Jersey, New York City. We're going to continue to keep an eye on this. There was actually a news conference that happened right before we got on the stream with the latest updates. We want to send it to this press conference right now.
Good morning. I believe the commissioners hit on most of the relevant stuff here. We'll see what kind of questions you have. But everyone knows that we were coming off a really busy fall. We got to see you guys quite a bit back in October and November. And other than that little holiday break we had there, our folks have been in it nonstop. This time last year, we were at 310 wildfires for a total of 315 acres burned. This year, for this same period, we're at 662 wildfires with 16,572 acres burned. Just an update on the fire we had down in Vineland, Cumberland County over the weekend. That fire stands at 1,327 acres and is still 80% contained. I too would just like to thank our first responders, our partners. Like you mentioned, we had some folks from DOT, State Police OEM, the local PDs, and at that point there, I'm going to turn it over to Trevor. Trevor's going to tell you what the plan is going forward.
Thank you, Bill, and good morning, everybody. So the Jones Road wildfire started yesterday morning. It was detected by Cedar Bridge Fire Tower. The fire observer in Cedar Bridge Fire Tower, when he climbed the tower that morning, he saw the wildfire and reported it at approximately 9:45 yesterday morning. We dispatched resources right off the bat. They arrived on location. The wildfire was about 10 to 20 acres upon arrival. And we had resources there quickly. We dispatched aircraft, and even with a big show of force to contain this fire, it still grew to be a large wildfire. So our initial attack efforts failed because of extreme fire behavior, dry, droughty fuels, spring fire season, windy, low RH, which is relative humidity. So we had difficulty containing it to our initial box where we tried to keep it in to prevent it from spreading. That initial box failed. We went to bigger, more substantial roads. That failed. We eventually went to the Garden State Parkway. It grew out of our reach there and eventually burned to Route 9 and became the fire that we see it is today. So a lot of hard work, a lot of aircraft, a lot of moving parts, a lot of fire trucks out there, and these relationships and these cooperative agencies that we rely on so much. So they're really important to us. Police departments, fire departments, DOT, any OEMs, they're just super critical in this team effort to contain these fires. So excellent job by all yesterday. We're still at it today. You can see the smoke behind us. We aren't out of the woods yet. We feel good about this, but we're still working toward it. Going forward, what's our plan? So our plan is to get people back home, get roads reopened, and knock that smoke down. So we're going to do that through mop-up and patrol. We've got approximately 100 firefighters on the fire line today, and they're out there working really hard, squirting out water along the parkway so there's no smoke on that morning commute or evening commute. They're putting out stumps and logs around homes so that there's no smoke and they can open their windows and their homes are safe and they feel safe. We understand the evacuations were very disruptive. We'd like to thank the public for being understanding and patient with us. So thank you to the public. We're going to continue to knock back the smoke, reopen the roads, reduce the traffic, We're continuing damage assessments as we speak. The utility companies are getting back in there. We're working with them to re-energize power lines. All the evacuations have been lifted, and there only remains Route 532, which is Wells Mills Road, closed, and Bryant Road, which is a local forest road, is currently closed. Thank you. Mayor?
Hey, good morning. I just want to give you an update from the Lacey Township perspective, which was part of ground zero from where we were with the fire. So shortly after probably about 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, we received word that one of our senior communities, Pheasant Run, was under a voluntary evacuation, and that leads into some special challenges when you're talking about health care and seniors and issues that could be immediate. That became mandatory evacuation. We set up a makeshift shelter at our community hall at 15 East Lacey Road, but we had no power. We had no cots, we had no nurses, we had no emergency provisions. But for our upper echelons in the county, Sheriff Mastronardi, Mike Fiore, and of course our Board of County Commissioners, emergency vehicles down here in accordance with OEM. Our police and our fire have worked in such tight unison. I am absolutely in awe of them. Again, to report to you that there has been no loss of life with the thousands of acres. Our township, and I'm just the face of our committee on behalf of all of us, with all of these gentlemen and ladies behind me who are very high-ranking officials, I'm extremely grateful to be a small link in that chain. And to provide these services to our residents. God is good, folks, and thank you all. Thank you all for this assistance. God bless you all.
JCP and Al.
Good morning. First, we'd like to thank our customers for their patience and understanding during this event. We recognize that any power outage is challenging, and in a situation as stressful as this fire and the past 12 to 24 hours have been, we really appreciate their patience and understanding. We also want to recognize the Forest Fire Service and their fire command. We work with emergency management personnel on the municipal, county, and state level every day. We've been in close contact and coordination with the fire command since we were notified of this fire early yesterday. At approximately 6 p.m. yesterday, we did receive a request from the fire command to de-energize all of our lines going in and out of our Oyster Creek substation. This resulted in an outage affecting approximately 25,000 customers. That includes pretty much all of our customers in Barnegat and Ocean Townships, as well as about 3/4 of our customers in Lacey. This morning, we were cleared to begin our damage assessments. Our crews have been out since early this morning surveying our lines, checking our poles, our wires, our devices to see what can handle power, what damage there is, and we will begin the restoration process as those surveys are completed. At this time, we do expect that our customers in Lacey, approximately 6,700 customers, will be restored early this afternoon. Our remaining customers will be restored as those surveys are completed. We have been proactively communicating with our affected customers throughout this process. We continue to do so. We encourage any customers that are affected to follow the updates on the outage map on our website, jcp-l.com. And if they have not already done so, register for our text alert system. They can text REG, R-E-G, to 544-487. We will provide ETR updates, restoration timing updates, via the text alert system. And even if customers are not affected, we encourage them to go ahead and register for that system, as you can report outages via text messages, receive outage updates, even check your bill via text message. Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna do questions now. Like I stated earlier, we're gonna start from the left and go to the right. Please raise your hand, and we'll go down the line.
This is for anyone. You talked about you guys expect the number of acres burned to grow and for this wildfire to be the largest in New Jersey in the past 20 years. Can you just speak to the difficulty of that and what firefighters are facing as the days go on?
Sure. So it may be the largest in 20 years based on how we are anticipating the fire movement. I'm sorry. Sorry, I was responding to the questioner. How dare I? Let me respond to the cameras. As I had mentioned before, we are anticipating the fire to grow from beyond the current estimate of 11,500 acres at 30% containment, and that is because this is still a very active fire, and there are burnout operations that are ongoing. Trevor could step up and explain that a bit more to you, but as we continue to get this under full control, the expectation is that that number of acres will grow, and grow in a place that is unpopulated, that is more open wilderness. But in order to fully contain the fire, more burnout operations are necessary, and that will likely increase the overall acreage. Trevor, do you have anything to add?
No. You got it.
I want to follow the rules and go this way.
I was just wondering if anyone could speak to the amount of mutual aid coverage that has been assisting with the fire.
Well, I know that we've had...
Don't make those guys mad.
Yeah. I know last night the local fire departments, through their county coordinators, pulled the trigger, and there were fire departments here from Gloucester County, Camden County, Burlington County, obviously all of Ocean County, and Monmouth County. So those folks provided mutual aid to the local fire departments, and their equipment was utilized to either fill our trucks with water, or we had them in places where homes were threatened, and their job was to be there and protect them homes, so in the event something did go wrong, they were there to deal with it. So the exact number, I would say it was hundreds of fire trucks, without a doubt, here. Everywhere you look, there were resources from counties throughout southern New Jersey.
Do you anticipate full containment by when? Is there an idea?
So the question is about when we can anticipate full containment. The expectation is that this fire will burn for a couple of days, and we don't have an exact timeline to reach full containment at this particular moment. Trevor or Bill, did you want to offer any potential estimates of what you think based on your past experience?
Well, based on the weather that we're dealing with right now, humidity's down, and we have these breezes, temperatures are up, I do believe this fire is going to continue to burn, especially in some of the low areas, up probably until we get some precipitation. So based on the forecast, it looks like Friday night into Saturday, which realistically is only a couple days away. If that does in fact hold true, I tend to believe that we should have this fire contained by the weekend, as long as we get the precipitation that's forecasted.
Jimmy, do you want to say, I think we might have skipped someone?
Yep, right here. Yep.
I was just wondering, you said there was one commercial structure, I believe it was burned. I noticed in photos yesterday that there was I don't know if it was a factory or a warehouse or something that has emergency equipment for fire department. Is that the structure that was burned?
Yeah, I could answer that, sir. So that was in the southern part of our town, Lacey Township, in the industrial park.
Yeah.
And that was Liberty garage door and awning. It's completely destroyed. It's on Old Shore Road. So I surveyed that damage with our administrator, Lorraine, this morning. But thankfully there were no injuries, and as I said earlier correctly, none of the single-family homes were destroyed. So we had zero loss of single-family structures, and we have a lot of timber structures, very few brick structures in our township, so we were very fortunate. But that down there in that part of the industrial park, the fire came right up to the back of the industrial park, and it took out that building. It was
the emergency equipment building?
No, it was Liberty garage door and awning.
Oh, okay.
So that's gone now. So it's very unfortunate because it was a great business. But does that answer your question, sir?
Yes,
thank you so much.
We have crews that have seen like small fires along the parkway over by Waretown and Fork River. Is that something that we're kind of watching? Anything that could, get in the way of drivers or help you on that?
Yes, it is something that we're watching. I'll ask Trevor to come up and explain operationally how that's being handled, but it is being watched throughout the day, and folks are responding to those reports. While I was on the aerial surveillance flight this morning, I could hear all of the first responders overhead responding to those individual incidents as they're reported. Trevor, do you want to explain that a bit more?
Sure, thank you, Sean. So yes, we are mopping up along the parkway. So what that means, there's lots of embers, lots of trees on fire that might have been dead in the past, so they might be more on fire than others. So they're no threat to the line, they aren't a threat to containment, but we are actively out there knocking down the heat, knocking down the smoke, so that along people's commute, that it doesn't disrupt them. There's not going to be any traffic concerns or road safety concerns.
You talked about several failed measures in the beginning when the fire first started. How unusual is it for that to happen over and over again? And is that directly attributed to the weather and the conditions we saw yesterday?
So this fire, it was a dangerous wildfire moving quickly. It's pretty extreme conditions right now. Spring fire season, April 20th is about the peak of spring fire season. And here we are at the 22nd, it started, today's the 23rd. We're right at the peak. It doesn't get any worse than this date in history in New Jersey. So that, coupled with the drought, coupled with the low humidity, winds, nice sunny weather, it just made for a difficult firefight.
Commissioner, there's been some criticism from members of the community about what they say is insufficient information. How are you all informing the community as to what was going on, and why are we just having a news conference now?
So I want to just backtrack a bit to Trevor's explanation of this fire. This fire was incredibly dangerous, and particularly in the late afternoon and into evening hours last night. It would have been a mistake to invite the press into that environment, and our focus needed to be, in order to save lives and property, on the immediate response, in coordination with the County of Ocean, in coordination with OEM, and through our outreach channels as well. Information was being consistently provided, and I would encourage every resident of the state of New Jersey to follow the New Jersey Forest Fire Service on any media channel that is familiar and comfortable to you, whether it's on X or Facebook, so that you are getting the real-time updates, because they go right there, right away. But no, a media briefing was not offered last night. It frankly wasn't safe for us to bring folks into that area. And to relate back to Trevor's point about the behavior of the fire, its heat and its activity, this being peak wildfire season, as the Forest Fire Service plans its approach to containment and to suppression, there's a strategy of, can we stop the fire at this location, and if that is unsuccessful because of the fire's behavior, we adjust course so as to contain it at another location. Would be the way to describe it. Sometimes that's in accordance with fire breaks that exist. Sometimes that's in accordance with roadways or water bodies that provide a natural fire break. But as this fire was behaving very actively and fiercely, it was effectively throwing itself, meaning that from the main fire on the west side of the parkway, winds were carrying embers that landed in another spot, creating a flanking fire. And so folks may have experienced on the ground the existence of multiple fires. It is all a piece of this wildfire, but those conditions of the throwing embers, of the spotting, would cause us to keep our focus on containing those conditions and providing updates through the media channels that we do.
But when you say real time, the one last night was at 11 p.m. and so that's where the criticism came from, that they didn't have anything overnight until now from the New Jersey forest fire.
I understand that reflection. In the early morning hours, we're up in the air surveying once we have the daylight to be able to provide the best information. As of around 7 a.m., OEM was providing updates about the sheltering through its media channels. The Garden State Parkway opened up around 5:30. Those pieces of information were being provided as they were available, as those decisions were made. With respect to the overall, here's the number of acreage, this is the containment, we've got to get out and do those investigations while we have the daylight. And so this is a function of that.
Yes. You said this could be the largest wildfire in what was the acreage burned in that previous fire?
In 2006, Bill, do you want to share?
Right here, the area we're standing in, 2007, we had a 17,000 acre wildfire that came across 539 as a result of a military exercise, and that fire went from 539, actually from the bombing range down there, if anybody's familiar with that, all the way to the Parkway and down to Route 72. So that there was a 17,000 acre fire that occurred 19 years ago. So if this one isn't the next 20 years, it's probably the 18 years.
Trish?
We know from previous reporting that this areas like this can be particularly challenging because they're heavily wooded but also heavily populated. Can maybe talk about the challenges in navigating that with so many people and so much infrastructure in the area, and also is anything being looked at in terms of wildfires and future planning and future development of this area and future preservation to mitigate situations like that?
Sure. We find ourselves in this very fire at the wildland-urban interface, right? That place where the open wilderness meets our developed built environment. And that place, that interface, is a highly risky place. And there are a number of ways to address and reduce those risks. Earlier this year, at a round table that the governor hosted, at which Senator Amato, right behind me, was with, and is an outstanding supporter of the Forest Fire Service, we launched the New Jersey Wildfire Smart campaign, which has a number of different components. You can find that right on the DEP website at dep.nj.gov. Part of that has to do with...
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sertivant. That was a press conference that happened moments ago in New Jersey, giving us an update on those wildfires there in New Jersey. We were talking about this morning, and we showed you video from earlier. I mean, wow, you're talking about a scary, dangerous view there. They're giving us, officials there in New Jersey, giving us updates. We'll go back to that press conference in a bit, but we want to come back here home to our area because we had some storms. We were weather alert yesterday afternoon into the evening. We updated you here on Live Impact News and throughout the newscast. Actually, Carlene, during the 4 o'clock show, at the end of the 4 o'clock show, Brad was given his forecast, and he saw some strong storms moving through South Carolina, at the time Chester County area, and I could tell, working with Brad long enough, when something's up, when it gets serious. So it did get serious. We had some damage in Lancaster. I want to go out to Kaylin Hadwood, who is live in Lancaster. I see a big tree behind you, Kaylin. Where are you right now? And talk about what you've seen since you've been out there.
Well, Nick, I'm actually in Chester County right now. The Fort Lawn area near Lancaster County, on the outskirts of Lancaster County, is where a lot of this damage has been sort of surrounded. And right now I'm actually at the home of a woman who has lost her home because of just how much damage they saw. I'm going to step out of the way so you can get a good look here. That is actually her bedroom. She says her and her son had stepped away so they could get some dinner. And so they were in the living room or in the dining area eating whenever this tree fell down, and they were obviously very emotional. They were crying, very happy to know that it wasn't worse, that they're okay, but now they do not have their home anymore, this home that they have lived in now for years. So it's been devastating for that reason. The Red Cross is offering some assistance, but they don't have insurance to be able to support them. So at 4 o'clock, I'm going to have some details on how you can help as they set up that GoFundMe. But it's not just this area where we're seeing this type of damage. We're also seeing damage, as I mentioned, in parts of Lancaster County. We saw damage in terms of seeing those trees fall down onto power lines. And so what we saw is so many crews. They've been out early this morning working to try to improve some of that damage, working to try to get that power back up. And I actually spoke to one homeowner who told me that it has been hours, and she's just now finally getting her power back on, maybe within the last couple of hours. And as you were talking about, Nick, Brad talked about how we were seeing the effects of this storm maybe around 4 or 5 o'clock. And so just imagine how many hours they were without power as crews work to respond to the damage and effects that we saw out here in the county. But they are making progress, and a lot of folks do have their power back on at this hour. Nick?
Yeah, you're right, Caitlin. Crews hard at work there, getting the power back on, cleaning up some of that damage, like the damage behind you. She's in Chester County. Caitlin will be on this afternoon at 4 and 5 o'clock with a live shot there. Walk us through what's happening there. Caitlin, thank you for your time. All right, so we want to go back out to the press conference in New Jersey that happened right before we got on the stream this afternoon, giving us updates on the wildfire there, massive wildfire there in New Jersey. Let's go back to that press conference. That's in Ocean County, New Jersey.
Is available right on our website. In addition to providing public education, guidance, and advice of that planning nature, we are also investing in fire suppression, the creation of more fire breaks. There are a couple of very recent projects to reduce those risks that the Forest Fire Service and our Division of Forestry have completed that we could certainly talk more about. But there's no one silver bullet, if you will. Right, it's a network of strategies, a network of solutions that need to be pursued concertedly and across every level of government. And we're fortunate, here in Ocean County, that the county takes fire suppression, fire safety so very seriously, and we're grateful for their support as well. I don't know if Assemblyman or Senator, if there's folks from Ocean, if you any folks or points you want to share on that from a county perspective.
The Sheriff's Department is assisting our local agencies, providing patrol and traffic functions and coordinating with state OEM. Our OEM is also coordinating with our sister agencies and doing whatever's provided. We are putting out equipment, all the equipment that's necessary that we're able to provide, and asking the state for their resources as well. But everything is coming together nicely. We can't commend the efforts of the firefighters enough. It's just been a tremendous response from the state, and all our local volunteers have been phenomenal.
And the situation is we are continuing to communicate with our people. I would caution our people, our residents, within earshot of my voice, our voices, and eyeshot of our faces. Follow the directions of your OEM and your police, and not the social media rumors, because that oftentimes causes confusion. I have had some internet issues at Town Hall. We are working on preparing a statement that will be posted as soon as possible. And I credit also our Chief of Police. In every storm event or any event like this, do due diligence as a town father to call the infirm, call the immobile, call seniors that need help. We've done that. And I know some of our officers have even gone door to door. So again, for the DEP, the 9th District, our commissioners here in Ocean County, appreciate the help. We can't do it alone in our zip codes, and just very grateful to everyone here. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, this is for the commissioner. Can you discuss the risk profile right now? I know an hour or two ago there were these big walls of smoke clouds hovering over neighborhoods. It looked like it was a mile or two from many neighborhoods. Folks were a little rattled by that. What's the risk profile right now? And then B, what exactly are you doing at this moment on the ground?
Sure. I'll invite Bill and Trevor up to talk through some of the operational perspectives so that you can understand what those considerations are, the backfiring operations that are going on, the suppression activities as we get reports of concern like what you're talking about. At about 9:45, the administrator of our Forest Fire and Forestry Service, Greg McLaughlin, and I took a surveillance flight, and I can understand the perspective of homeowners, because I can see with my own eyes, and there's video we can share with press, that the proximity to the neighborhoods east of the Parkway, and particularly east of Route 9, that there would be concern in those communities. From an active fire management perspective, we have moved the active fire west of those residential areas. Now, to be clear, there is an air quality alert in effect for this area, for the area of Ocean, Lacey, because particulate matter is of concern, and folks should take precautions, particularly if you're among a vulnerable population. As you've heard the mayor speak to, we have a number of seniors in these communities. We need to make sure that their windows are closed and that they're keeping themselves safe. But the immediate risks to the community east of Parkway and the and Route 9 have been avoided through the activities of the Forest Fire Service and all of the partners you see around this space. And I'll ask Trevor and Bill to speak to the operational considerations at play today and then the days ahead.
All right, well, I think everybody's sees that the column of smoke that was here earlier when you guys arrived is no longer here. And what that is the process due to our firing operations that are taking place. You know, our objective is to build line around the entire fire. Somewhere to work off of for our firefighters that is safe, somewhere to check the fire up and stop its forward progress. So over the night and yesterday, these lines were put into place. Once these lines are in place and they're secure, our fire operations begin. So those firing operations occur out in front of, whether it's the main body of fire, the flank of the fire. Either way, we need to remove the fuel prior to the main fire arriving at these control lines or containment lines. And what you saw this morning was the actual main body of fire working in the direction of our control lines, where we had some fire lit, burning back towards the main fire, consuming the fuel ahead of it, and therefore, if you look out there, you'll notice that most of the smoke is gone, which is a good indication, because what you see today, where it goes from a lot of smoke to no smoke, yesterday was just the opposite. We went from a little bit of smoke to it looked like the world was coming to an end. So based on what I'm seeing here today, you know, we've been standing out here for a little while, but I am extremely confident that the folks out there are making substantial progress. Now that's going to continue to burn. There's going to be little pockets of fuel that need to be consumed, and once we feel that all that fuel's been consumed, like the commissioner was talking about, that's what's going to up our total number of acreage. The area of the fire is not necessarily going to expand. It's going to be the total number of total amount of forest that's consumed. So what you're seeing now is the smoke's disappearing, which means that our techniques are working. You know, there's going to be little pockets, and therefore that's going to keep us from actually containing this at 100%. But I think based on what I'm seeing here, the containment should start to rise up, and definitely a good indication that the crews out there are making progress with this.
More questions this way?
Thank you. I have a couple. So I think that you addressed that there have been no loss of life. Is there anybody at this point, though, however, that is at least unaccounted for at this time?
No, not that I am aware of. Mayor?
No.
And none is reported by the mayor as well.
And then I have two follow-ups. I think you might have addressed this before, Commissioner, but I thought I overheard somebody ask about the Parkway. Is there still a chance that the Parkway could be shut down again? And then also, one of my coworkers had been hearing online or another report that there was maybe a half dozen unhoused that were living in the woods that might have been displaced because of the fire. Can you confirm that as well? And if so, can you elaborate a little more on it?
I'll ask Trevor to come up and identify any issues with out on house populations or campers that may have been evacuated. With respect to the Parkway, right now the Parkway is open. We're working on the movement west of the Parkway, as Bill just explained. And we're keeping our eyes on the area that is adjacent to each side of the Parkway, as well as the median, to make sure that anything that may pop up is handled immediately and doesn't become a greater problem.
Is there any, though, indication now that there could be a possible closure, though, later, or is it at this point it's safe to say that the fire is enough away from the Parkway that it doesn't appear that could be the case?
It would be irresponsible of me to tell you the Parkway wouldn't need to be closed if the fire suddenly begins changing its behavior different from what we see right now. You just heard the chief of the Forest Fire Service explain that he's confident with respect to the techniques being deployed and the...
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Servant. That is a press conference there in New Jersey, updating us on the wildfire there in New Jersey, Ocean County, New Jersey. Still amazed that, Carlene, they said in New York City, that you'd be able to smell and see. Yes.
Smell it, maybe see it.
Mm-hmm. Seeing that's not a pretty sight there. All right, so we wanted to change gears. We want to bring it back home here in Charlotte. I'm excited. I'm always excited when we have an in-studio guest. We have a special guest. I was just reminiscing about the last time we did our interview. It's been months ago. We were in Uptown. It was before this whole studio was built. But anyway, we'll get to that a little bit later. But we're talking about National Volunteer Month. April is National Volunteer Month. Did you know that, Carlene? Are you volunteering, Carlene?
I should volunteer.
I'll put you on the spot. We keep you busy here at Live Impact News, so I understand. We have Donna Dunlap here in studio. She is CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Carolinas. How are you doing?
Great. How are you?
I'm all right. I can't complain.
Excellent.
It's nice seeing you. Thank you for stopping by.
It's my pleasure.
We're talking about volunteering. You actually I don't want to say you got on me, but you were telling me, hey, you volunteer.
It doesn't take much to have a big impact in someone's life.
Talk about, before we get into National Volunteer Month, can you talk about what Big Brothers Big Sisters?
Sure. Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Carolinas. We're one of 220 affiliates in the country. And we are focused on helping youth ages 5 to 21 find a mentor that's dedicated to supporting their development plan and helping them to either go to college, enroll in the military, enlist in the military, enroll in college, or have an opportunity for a living wage job. So we really try to help a child avoid risky behaviors, graduate from high school, and have the support of a mentor.
You're doing important work in the community.
It's a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. Let's talk about National Volunteer Month. This raises awareness for those who volunteer, and also trying to get more folks out here, like Carlene and I, to volunteer. Why is this month so important?
Just to provide the focus, and first of all, thank you to everyone who volunteers to support our community. There's so many vulnerable populations in our community, so whatever organization you have a passion for, keep doing that good work, because you're changing people's lives for the better, so thank you. I always joke with people when I try to recruit volunteers and say that it doesn't take a lot of time. You watch more bad commercials than the time it would take to support a child a month. So please set aside time to help young people or help another organization that needs support.
What do you tell those folks that give you that excuse? Oh, I got kids, I got to work, I got other things in my life going on. What do you tell those folks?
I tell them I find time. It's just, when is that window? So I've got a child. I have my mom who will be 90. So excited about that on Sunday, and I run a nonprofit. So I make time. So for me, it works early in the morning. We spend a couple hours, and that's something she looks forward to. My little sister's 13, and I'm excited to be able to be a part of her life and be focused on her developmental plan and to help her have a bright future.
I mean, you mentor in like all aspects, right? Like you said, you have a 13-year-old, and then the story that we did months ago, you know, she's older, obviously, and an adult.
I have had two. So I have one now that's active, and the other one moved to Atlanta. And we were matched since she was 9. She's now 18 and going to her prom and graduation and becoming a wonderful young lady. So it's great to be a part of her life.
Is it emotional seeing them grow up?
It is. I mean, it's almost like they're my little babies. That's not the intent. We're supposed to be supportive friends, but you really do get attached. And you can see the growth over time. And I just love what we do with our young people and watching the mentors, and some of them are not the same culturally as a child they're matched with, how they grow and learn and how it improves who they are as individuals. So it's a great experience.
I want to ask you that question. How did you grow? What did you learn?
Patience. Patience. I learned more about middle school girl drama because I have a boy, and so and I just learned to enjoy life. You know, I'm so focused on work and caring for others that having experiences with her made me have fun again, and it's just been a great experience.
I know doing anything new for folks who are new to volunteering, it can be scary because you have anxiety. You want to do well. You want to be the best you can be. You want to help. You don't want to get in the way. Do you hear those stories sometimes? I feel like that sometimes when it comes to volunteering. I was like, I want to play a part. I don't want to be in the way.
You won't be in the way. Every organization is a little bit different, but we have a support system. So every child and parent and mentor, we call them a BIG, has a caseworker, if you want to call them that. They're called a match support specialist, and they connect with them every month that first year. How's it going? What are you doing? How can we make sure it's productive and it's safe and you're being consistent? And so you get that support. We have different workshops. We have different activities we do. So you don't have to guess. You don't have to be a parent. Just come on out and give a child just a little bit of time. And 1 year makes a difference. We only ask for a 1 year commitment. And in that 1 year, it can make a big difference.
What should folks know if they're looking at this interview right now, they go back and rewatch this interview, how can they get connected with Big Brothers Big Sisters? Is it as easy as emailing you?
You can simply Google. I mean, I'm so old school. You can just Google Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Carolinas, and we pop up. Just make sure it's Central Carolinas, and then you can go to volunteer and hit that button. Go through, fill out the application, and then we review your application. We call you in, and we will take you through a vetting process so we're safe and that you're matched with a child that you're comfortable with, age-wise, interests. And you can decide even up to the time you're having that initial interview whether or not it works for you. Is this the right person? And you could say, no, keep looking. And we try to find little mini-me's for you that you can really enjoy and have something in common with.
Is it tougher to find volunteers these days for folks to make that time?
I am so glad you asked that question. I have about 69 children waiting for a mentor, and I only have 30 volunteers that have been vetted. So we desperately need help and support and mentors. And so if you cannot do that, then financial support so we can bring more children into the program. We serve 1,000 children. So how do we reach more children? Because the mental health challenges, academic challenges, and even engagement in risky behavior since the pandemic, that's been a problem with young people, and I want to pull more into our program.
I just thought about that. The pandemic played a role in a lot of this, right?
It sure did. I mean, a lot of young people were already, if they live at or below poverty, that's who we serve. Typically a single-parent household, or they may have an incarcerated parent, or they may be in foster care or homeless. They already had gaps, academic gaps, in going to Title I schools, and now those gaps are even wider, and it's more challenging. And the mental health issues are on the rise for all children since the pandemic. It just really, took its toll on young people. And we just try to help young people avoid risky behaviors. We don't work with children who've entered the juvenile justice system. We're a preventative program.
I'm a man of my word. I said I was gonna sign up. I am. It's taken me a while.
Are you really?
I am.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready. I've been busy and I've been making excuses for. I gotta put if I'm gonna put Carlene on the spot, I gotta put myself on the spot too. So I am going to sign up. I think as adults, we go through that. Oh, I got so much going on, and then, there's a bigger picture purpose for us all. So we can all carve out 2 hours.
Right, and maybe it's not Big Brothers Big Sisters, it's some other organization you have passion for, and normally they only want a couple hours of your time a month. So ours is just twice a month, 1 to 2 hours with the child, and just doing it consistently, it changes their trajectory for success. It has a positive impact.
And we're not going to wait too long to have you back.
Okay.
Do an interview, because I feel like it was too long to have you.
That's okay.
I'm trying to think back at our last interview. It's been months, so we don't want to wait that long again. I enjoyed talking to you, Donna.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share who we are, what we do, and the children we serve.
You guys do great work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Donna Dunlap, CEO, Big Brothers Big Sisters. You got my word. Carlene, you heard it.
I heard it.
I'm going to volunteer. Right.
Inspiring.
It is. It's great work they're doing. They're helping the young people there. I have a niece that's almost 12. I have a nephew that's 14 years old. They're around the age where they need good mentors. I was just talking to my nephew. He's hard-headed, but I'm trying to give him some mentor advice. But yeah, National Volunteer Month. Make sure you sign up. Make sure it doesn't have to be just Big Brothers and Big Sisters. It can be any nonprofit in our area looking for volunteers. All right, we're going to switch gears now. We want to send you to the Karen retrial in the Boston area. This is a retrial that's underway. There's a witness on the stand right now. Let's listen in.
Defendant.
Yes.
Please tell the jury about that conversation.
She, I asked her what happened, and she said, we went to a party. I left him there. I said, you just left him there? She said, yes, I just left him there.
Did she say whether she left him inside or outside?
No, she just said I left him there.
Did she tell you whether or not she left him in the driveway or the street?
She just said, no, I just left him there.
You told us that when you got into Good Samaritan Hospital, you were walking down the hallway and you had another interaction with the defendant.
Yes.
And you told us that she was asking if he was dead.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe a little bit where in the hospital you had this interaction with her?
When they took us down to the emergency room, the doors open, and there was a corridor to go down to the other rooms, and she was on the left-hand side, and that's when she saw me come in, and that's when she started yelling, is he dead, Peg? Is he dead, Peg?
So when she was yelling, could you describe her mood or demeanor? Was she animated?
She's loud, and I don't know. She was just loud, and as she was saying it.
And when she was asking you, is he dead, did you again ask her a question?
I just asked the nurse, what is she doing here?
Okay. And did you speak to Miss Reed herself?
No. No.
At some point, and you and your husband got to see John?
Yes.
And were you with Kerry at some point?
Kerry was there, and then my son Paul was there.
How did you get home?
I think I went home with Paul, and I think my husband went home with Kerry. We went back to Canton at the time.
Do you remember generally the time frame? Was it morning, afternoon, evening?
No, it was morning.
Do you remember getting home that day?
Yeah. It was snowy, icy.
Was anybody home? when you got
No.
back?
No, it was just us. And then the kids started coming home. And that's when I was trying to, take care of them. And then there was a knock at the door. And it was Karen, her father, and her brother asked if they could come in. And I was just trying to calm the kids because Patrick was just out of control, yelling. And then they came in. And then he said, "Do you mind if we go upstairs and get a couple of her things?" Which I never should have let them go up there. But at the time, I just couldn't think straight. And I really didn't have anybody else to help me keep them down in the kitchen. So I don't know what they got up there, what they did up there.
How long were they, when you say upstairs, do you know what room they went to?
I assumed the bedroom.
So I'm going to strike that, Mrs. O'Keefe. If you could just what you actually know, okay? And Mr. Brennan can ask a better question.
Thank you. Could I lead a bit?
Yes.
Ma'am, how many rooms are upstairs in John's home?
1, 2, 3, 4 bedrooms and an office. And off the master bedroom, there's a bathroom, and then there's a closet. It's a big house.
Did you see the defendant and her father go upstairs?
I didn't really see them go up, but I knew they were up there because I could hear them.
You didn't follow them up or go to look?
No.
You didn't know which room or rooms they were in?
No, I'm assuming the bathroom and the master bedroom.
My question was poor. You didn't see which rooms they actually went in?
No.
How long was the defendant upstairs in John's home with her father?
I don't know, maybe 10, 15 minutes.
Did you see them come back down?
No, I did not.
When they were upstairs, what were you doing?
I was trying to calm the kids.
Both of them?
But yeah, well, mainly Patrick.
How was Patrick reacting?
He was very upset once we told him. Because he slept over a friend's house the night before. And he just said, "I'll never see him again." Sorry.
Would you like a moment?
Mrs. O'Keefe, would you like to take a short break?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
You can just let me know when you're ready. Take your time.
Okay, go ahead.
You ready?
Go ahead.
Okay. That morning, when the defendant and her father came into your home, did you personally interact with the defendant?
No.
Was there any hugs, condolences?
No.
Did you ever confront the defendant with any accusations when she was in your home that morning?
I don't even remember her being in the house. When she went upstairs, that's the last I saw of her.
Did you ever lean over a kitchen island? Do you have a kitchen island in your house?
No.
Did you ever lean over the kitchen island and say, "I think he looks like he got hit by a car"?
No. I don't remember talking to her that morning.
Did you see when she left?
Nope.
Did you ever see her Lexus in the driveway?
No.
The children, who's their guardian and custodian now?
Well, there's still 4 of us. 4 of us.
Where do they live?
One in Boston, one in Stoughton, and Paul's in Bridgewater, and me.
Where do the children live?
With me. In Canton.
They live with you full time?
Yes.
You're their primary caretaker?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, just a little. There you go.
Okay.
Mrs. O'Keefe, I'm very, very sorry for your loss. I have no questions for you.
All right, Mrs. O'Keefe, you're all set.
Thank you.
Right, so, court officer.
I would like to introduce 2 clips labeled 4 and 5. They're both on. Both,
Can you explain?
both clips 4 and 5 are on that zip drive.
Okay.
17.
There's no objection to these? I don't know what they are. Sir, a second, please.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sertivant. We were just watching a witness speak on the stand there in the Karen Reed retrial that is underway. So it looks like they're taking a break, but we want to shift now to Austin, Texas, where that is Governor Greg Abbott as he signs legislation creating a DOGE office there, Department of Government Efficiency office there in Texas. He's speaking right now. Let's listen in.
It will ensure that Texas is operating at the speed of business, and it will make it easier for our fellow Texans, average Texans, to deal with their own state government. Texas DOGE will lead to spending cuts, regulation cuts, and a more user-friendly government. I'm proud of everything that the Speaker, Lieutenant Governor, as well as the entire House and Senate were able to achieve to get this bill to my desk, which is now law. There's science to this. Texas regulatory reform is now law in the state of Texas. They can share with your members. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. I believe this is one of the earliest bill signings we've had in our 10 years working together. And thank you, Mr. Speaker, for making that happen and getting the bill across the line. Senate Bill 14 by Phil King, and he did all the work on this. I'd call it Doge Texas style. It is the bill to focus on what ends up when you make government more efficient is saving taxpayers money. That's really the goal. We want to reduce regulations, as the governor said. We want to have a clear review of all of our agencies, where we can trim, and how we can save businesses money, how we can save taxpayers money, so that they will continue to come here and create jobs and add to our economic viability and competitiveness, which we do. So I think it's really interesting. Doge Texas style. We're serious about it, and one of the things I like about the bill is it has a portal so that anyone watching right now, any citizen can go on and see the same thing that he will see, that I and the Speaker will see, or any legislator, in simple, plain language. In Texas, we like to keep things simple. So Texas Doge will make us more transparent than ever to every citizen, cut all the red tape, or most of the red tape, make us as efficient as possible, attracting more businesses, creating more jobs, and saving taxpayer money. I can't think of really a better bill to start off the session with.
Thank you, Speaker.
You know, I think it's very exciting that this is the first bill signing we've had this session. But I predict it's going to be the first of many more that we're going to have. Governor, Lieutenant Governor, this is a fantastic bill to start with. Both these chairmen back here did yeoman's work in getting this done smoothly, efficiently, and quickly so that we can put this into law. The business of Texas is business. It clearly is. And we have a reputation around the country as being one of the most business-friendly environments out there. As the governor pointed out, that's not always exactly true when it comes to regulations. Texas businesses, Texas citizens, they deserve regulations that are plain English, that you can understand what they mean. They deserve to know that what they actually do, and they deserve to make sure they're consistent and as few as possible. What this bill is going to do is provide a efficient regulatory framework. It is going to reduce the number of regulations. And what I believe is the fewer regulations we have, the more efficient they are, the easier they are to understand, is going to help Texas's business and economy continue to boom, which is why I'm excited this is the first bill that is being signed into law. Thank you all.
Thank you. And now Jeff Burdett with NFIB.
Thank you, Governor. First, I'd like to say thank you to the governor for creating the Small Business Freedom Council. It was an honor to co-chair with Glenn Hammer from TAB and to work with your staff on this important and fruitful endeavor. I'd like to thank you also for your leadership in keeping small businesses always on the front of your mind and proactively keeping Texas the best place to do business. The Small Business Freedom Council was made up of business association leaders and small business owners from around the state. In early March, we released our report, and just a few items that we identified, including reducing regulatory and bureaucratic burdens, reducing taxes and fees, especially on the business personal property tax, and eliminating areas where there is fee duplication. I'm proud to say that many of these recommendations are now working their way through the legislative process, and it's an honor to be here today to see the governor sign SB 14, which is a culmination of these efforts and will continue our good work that we created by creating the Texas Regulatory Efficiency Office under your purview. I'd also like to thank Lieutenant Governor Patrick and Senator King for shepherding this on the Senate side, Speaker Burrows and Representative Capriglione on the House side. And it was a very efficient process. We're here this early in the process.
That's the first proof of efficiency. There you go.
First proof of efficiency, exactly. Senate Bill 14 is the kickoff to what could be the best legislative session for small businesses in Texas history. And I appreciate the support of all of these legislative leaders here today that have really helped small businesses.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to all the members of NFIB for what they do to create jobs and grow our great economy.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We'll take a few questions.
Governor, is there a sector or industry or some examples that you think is low-hanging fruit that the red tape could be cut?
I got to tell you, I think there's low-hanging fruit all over the place. When you look at the vast amount of regulations, there's so much slicing and dicing that can and needs to be done. And so we will look to accelerate the process to make sure we start slashing away to make government more efficient as quickly as possible.
Governor, we're talking a lot about different bill signings that we're expecting. I wanted to see if we could get any reaction on SJR 3 getting delayed today in the House. It's a priority for Patrick, as there's been reporting the House
Well, I'm hearing it for the first time, so I don't know exactly what you're talking about. All I can say is this, and that is one thing that we have shown, being myself, the Lieutenant Governor, and the Speaker, we are working collaboratively together better than any time that I've been governor. And I think that same collaboration will seep into and be a part of both the House and the Senate. Listen, not everything is going to get passed on day one, and there's the give and take through this process. But I have no doubt that when the sun sets on this session, it's going to be viewed as one of, if not the most successful session we've seen in more than a decade.
Governor, you mentioned that. For appointing the comptroller and
Well, Dave, I was thinking about you, but I don't know what your availability.
Yeah, but he can't count. So
Well, but also, that for one, but I was thinking about him until here we are at a press conference and his phone goes off, and so you're all off the table. I don't.
That's another example of efficiency. No, I don't.
Governor, you mentioned that you were surprised by this report that said that we had a bad rep in regards to regulations.
Good afternoon, everyone. Vanessa Rufus here in the Live Impact News studio, taking over for Nick Sturdivant. As we just saw there, live images from Texas as Texas Governor Greg Abbott, surrounded by other state leaders, signed this bill that is enacting a DOGE department there. So as we've seen, not an official department on the federal level, but so-called Department of Government Efficiency on the federal level. We see Texas following suit with an actual effort signed into law here to make this an office that looks into how it can streamline government operations and spending. Of note here in the Carolinas, obviously as we broadcast here from Charlotte, we're actually following a similar program that's been proposed in North Carolina. In fact, a couple days ago, our Julie Kay did a piece on that. So if you're interested in learning more, you can always go to WCNC.com or go to the WCNC Charlotte mobile app and learn more about that. But essentially, it was just introduced in the state Senate. Senate Leader Phil Berger filed this new bill. It's actually called the DAVE Act. And so this would create what's called the Division of Accountability, Value, and Efficiency. It would fall under the State Auditor's Office, and it would require the office to identify agencies and positions in the state government that could be cut or dissolved. And while we don't know exactly how the governor would feel about this, because we know that he does have veto power ultimately with any sort of legislation that passes the General Assembly, he has indicated support for making government more cost effective, but he talked about that in the State of the State, but he didn't directly remark on this specific legislation. And he also talked about, as far as streamlining government, he thinks that things should be done with, as he calls it, a scalpel, not a chainsaw. So a little bit of context here and some background too from the Carolinas perspective of this effort here that we're seeing amongst a couple states now to follow suit with DOGE offices. With that, we want to turn to some live breaking images that are just now coming into the Live Impact News studio. So we want to take you now live to the Broward County area. So this is South Florida, where we are getting aerials of a house fire that is in progress right now. We've got crews, it looks like, on scene trying to douse a specific portion of the roof there with water. We're still trying to get a few more details on this, but we can report that the NBC there in South Florida is saying that this is in Wilton Manors. So Wilton Manors is a city that is north of Fort Lauderdale, just to give you an idea of exactly where this is underway. And so far, I guess as far as some good news, we haven't heard of any injuries. So that's some good news to report. Still, of course, seeing the crews actively there on scene trying to put this out. So it's probably too soon to even tell you as well how the fire started, but that is obviously something that will be investigated after the fire itself gets under control. So once again, Wilton Manors, this is north of Fort Lauderdale, the South Florida area, where we've got these live aerials of fire crews on scene of a home trying to get this fire under control. We do see some smoke coming from the roof. Just trying to get an eyeball of, the color. We tend to try to look at the color of the smoke because that can indicate how far along the firefighting efforts are. Historically, when we see a lot of thick, dark smoke, it does indicate that you have a lot of fuel there that continues to fuel that fire. And then when you start to see lighter colored smoke, that's probably a good sign. So I wouldn't say this is particularly dark, but it's not quite light. So I feel like this is still very much an active situation. We'll continue to watch this. Obviously, we've got more details that we're waiting on, and of course, the shot is being a little bit finicky for us. So once we get more, we'll pass you back over to Wilton Manors, Florida. But meantime, we've been keeping an eye on the Boston area throughout the day, and obviously the last 2 days as the Karen Reed retrial is now underway. We are in day 2. We've been seeing some pretty emotional testimony today, and a little bit of background for folks who are just getting up to speed with this case. This is actually a retrial because Reed's first trial ended in mistrial back in July. She's accused of killing her police officer boyfriend by backing over him with a car. And so once again, this retrial underway, day 2. Let's send you there now live on Live Impact News on WCNC+.
Look bad by saying something, what they perceive to be pejorative, in a tone that's pejorative about that very same witness. He's trying to, at this point, there is no issue about whether or not Peggy O'Keefe leaned over and said something about the car, being hit by the car. He's trying to create the issue so that he can put this video clip in. Has nothing to do with consciousness of guilt.
It's not for impeachment of Peggy O'Keefe. We don't take the position that Peggy O'Keefe is lying. This is a statement of the defendant. It's in the form of an admission or a statement which qualifies for admission substantively, not for impeachment purposes. The defendant should not be able to pick and choose which of her statements do not look good for her and do not look bad for her. She made the statements that are relevant to this case. It's not unfairly prejudicial. It's a statement that they embraced and they chose and they publicized, and it goes directly to the issue of consciousness of guilt. Just because it hurts, just because it's incriminating, just because it's difficult for the defense is not a basis to preclude it. It is an admission, a statement of the defendant. It's admitted substantively.
If that were true, Your Honor, then they would simply put in the transcript. They wouldn't need to play the video. Transcript is one line. And his mother leans over the kitchen island and says to me, I think he looks like he got hit by a car. He looks like he got hit by a car. Sorry. I think he looks like he got hit by a car. It looks like he got hit by a car. They can just put that statement in. They want to play this because of its prejudice, because of the tone that it sets. It's not in evidence at this point. The witness who supposedly said the statement has denied having said it and said it never occurred. This is far, far more prejudicial than it is probative. If they want to simply use the transcript, that's one thing. But playing this video is simply being used to vilify my client because of the tone of voice she used in the clip. That's it. That's what's not allowed. That's overly prejudicial, and it's not relevant.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about this. And if I decided to let it in, you can let it in first thing tomorrow morning. I'm not going to let it in now.
May I ask for a ruling in the morning?
Yes.
May I introduce the one that was not objected to?
Yes. Do you want a consciousness of guilt instruction, Mr. Jackson?
No, we don't believe that
So you're in agreement that statement just comes in?
We're not objecting. I'm not trying to introduce it. Don't put words in my mouth. I'm not trying.
No, I said you're okay.
But I'm not objecting that it at this point that it shouldn't come in.
Okay. We'll bring the jurors back and we'll do that. Tony, can they come right in, or is it going to be 5 minutes? Can they come right in? Thank you.
May I clip that's under consideration and just admit the other one?
Yes, and give it to me so I can look at it, please.
This is it. So I'm sorry, Your Honor, do you want me to leave that on there so you can look at it tonight? And if we decide to take it off in the morning?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Because you can just single it out and play one, right? Okay, thank you. Chrissy.
All rise for the code, please. Chair Secretary.
Folks, we just obviously were hearing there a little bit more testimony and activity from the Karen Reed retrial, which we've been dipping in and out of all day long here. This is day 2, and we'll continue to bring you back there as we see folks come back from these breaks and recesses. Meantime, we want to take you back now to South Florida, where we've been watching here on Live Impact News for the past several minutes this active house fire that's reported in Wilton Manors. This is Broward County, so this is north of Fort Lauderdale, if you're familiar with the South Florida area. We are seeing, it looks like, a little bit of improvement in the sense of the firefighting efforts, not seeing quite as much smoke coming out of the home, but of course we don't know for sure until we get more updates from those fire crews on scene. Still waiting more detail as well on the actual start of the fire, what caused this, are there any injuries reported? But it's definitely been an active scene since we've been checking in and out of this Wilton Manors area with these aerial views for the last several minutes. We're going to obviously keep an eye on any sort of information that might come from officials, just because we haven't necessarily heard any confirmation that folks, have gotten out okay. We don't know if there's anyone that was inside at the time, but we have not heard from authorities, an exact addressing of that situation. So that's obviously something that we're going to be very attuned to. Just want to make sure that everyone is okay with this scene, and that if there was anybody inside the home, that they got out okay. So once again, for folks just joining us here, live images coming to us from Wilton Manors, Florida, north of Fort Lauderdale, where we are still seeing, actually, as we get that better, tighter shot from aerial views here, we are still seeing some flames coming through the roof of this fire. I'm not seeing any active pouring of water, which we were certainly seeing just a few minutes ago. So that is a little bit different of a tactic now. We're seeing maybe a change in how firefighters are going to approach this, because, as we zoom out here, I'm trying to get an idea of how many fire trucks might be on scene. Looks like, well, I'm seeing at the very least one. That's not to say there's only one, but that's just the only fire truck we can see from this vantage point. And actually, now that I am starting to see some of the smoke coming back out of the roof, it doesn't look great as far.
It kind of appears like the smoke, like from what we saw earlier, it's like getting darker.
Yeah, you're right, Carlene. Yeah, so I mean that we talked about the dark smoke and how usually that indicates that it still has a lot of fuel that it's burning, and that will make the smoke appear darker. It does look like it's darker from the last time we checked in. So, okay, actually I'm starting to see there's water coming through from underneath now. So once again, like we mentioned, kind of a change in tactic for fire crews there. Initially, we saw them on the outside of the structure, shooting water through the roof into the area, whatever room that is there underneath the burned portion of the roof, trying to get the flames there from the outside. It appears as though somehow crews have been able to get inside or get a vantage point where now they're able to, there as you see, shoot that water up from the bottom up onto the roof. And so looks like they still kind of have a task ahead of them. I'm not really seeing flames like we were just a couple seconds ago, but the smoke does not look, yeah. So let me just make sure that we're not getting any new details here from some of our feeds. Okay, yeah, it looks like we still have some of the same information here, started around this afternoon, around 2 o'clock. Crews responding there. They saw the smoke coming from the roof. They were started to dump the water there from the outside. Now they're on the inside. Still a question mark how this fire started. Still a question mark if anyone was inside. Are they doing okay? If so, and so we'll obviously be waiting anxiously to hear, folks' conditions if there was anybody inside. Do we have? It looks like we've got some.
New witnesses, Dan.
Okay. Yeah, we've got some more movement here in day 2 of the Karen Reed retrial. So we'll go ahead and, I don't know, Carlene, if we want to keep this maybe up in the bottom right. Okay, so we'll keep the fire for you folks here, bottom right corner of the screen, as we transition in full back to Boston, Massachusetts, in day 2 of the Karen Reed retrial. We've got a new witness there on the stand.
To conduct investigations, respond to calls. They did a standard field sobriety testing week, physical training, Massachusetts law and criminal procedure.
When you began as a Norwood police officer, were you a patrol officer?
Yes, I was.
And did you remain a patrol officer for the 10 or 11 years you were there?
Yes, I was also part-time in the detail office. But
What does that mean?
handling jobs when we're off, so filling details like road construction, I'm sorry.
When you left Norwood and began working with the Massachusetts State Police, based on your prior training, did you have to go through further training, or were you ready to just begin?
No, I had to go to the State Police Academy for 6 months.
After you got out of the State Police Academy, were you assigned to a barracks?
Yes, I was assigned to the South Boston Barracks for my training, and then once my break-in training was done, I was assigned to the Holden Barracks near Worcester.
At some point during your time in your career with the Massachusetts State Police, did you start to receive any type of training in the specific field?
I'm sorry.
Did you receive any specialized training at the Massachusetts State Police after the academy?
Once I got into the district attorney's office, yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about what type of specialized training you received when you were assigned to the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office?
Yes, so I was hired by the district attorney's office. I do cell phone and computer forensics, as well as I'm a sexual assault investigator. I had prior sexual assault investigator school done, and I went for digital forensics classes as part of my now daily duties.
In order to work with cell phone forensics, did you have any particular background in it at that point?
I had taken some classes when I was at Norwood PD, but I didn't have any of the Cellbrite or Axiom classes that I do now.
We'll talk about those in a minute so you can give a little more explanation. Did you ever receive a specific advanced degree in data forensics?
No, I didn't.
Did you ever receive any specialized further degree, a master's in data forensics?
No.
So your training came while you were a Massachusetts State Police officer through the Massachusetts State Police?
Yes, that's correct.
What type of courses did you take to learn about forensics?
The first one I took was Cellbrite Certified CCO CCPA is their intro course that teaches you how to use the program and how to extract cell phones using Cellbrite program.
There's a couple words I want you to help us understand.
Yes.
The first is an extraction. What is, as simple as you can, a cell phone extraction?
Yes, quite literally plugging the phone into specialized hardware or software, and it pulls the data from that device to make a digital copy of it, so that way we can load it up later to look at it.
So when you extract the phone through a download, it basically mimics the content of the phone, but it's in a different shell, it's in a different form than inside the actual phone itself?
Yes, exactly. That way we're not manipulating or changing any data while looking, because if we were to open the device, it would change data by going through the phone itself or computer.
Okay. When you plug it in, can you explain a little bit about what you're plugging it into?
Yes. So the main program and hardware that we use is GrayKey. It is, again, specialized software and hardware that once the phone's plugged into it, the software is able to extract the information if we have the passcode. If we don't have the passcode and the phone is supported, it's able to guess that passcode depending on how long. Like for an iPhone, if you have a 4-digit, it could take months. If you have a 6-digit, it could take up to 35 years.
So does the phone have to be accessible to actually do that download through GrayKey? Do you have to be able to open the phone with the passcode?
No. So if we don't have the passcode and it's supported, it can guess the passcode without making the phone useless after, say, for an iPhone, I believe it's 10 passcodes.
Is it a quicker process if you do have the passcode?
much. It would take hours to download the device, depending on how much information's on it.
How do you ensure that the information that you extract from the actual device is accurate and the same when you're making a copy? How do you ensure the integrity of it?
So with GrayKey, it produces a progress report as it goes through its process. The only two fields that we can sort of amend in that PDF that it spits out is the ID number and then the investigator name. So after the data is pulled out, it creates a hash value, which is like a digital fingerprint for that specific information. So if you had gone in and to edit or change it, that digital fingerprint would change. It would change the big long string of numbers that it attaches to that file.
The digital fingerprint, is that the same thing you're referring to as the hash value?
Yes, exactly.
And how do you ensure that the hash value of the product, the copy, is the same as what's on the phone?
You can run the zip file that it creates with the information into a hash calculator, and it will give the same hash as what is produced from the GrayKey PDF report. So if something had changed or there was an error with it, the hash would not be the same as what was given from the PDF, and that's how we know that the data is not the same.
So if you download a phone and it has a hash value, this digital fingerprint, and then someone was to manipulate the phone and remove anything, even a period, from that data, if it's run again, will the hash value change?
Yes, it would not be the same because
Even
it
if
will
it's
show.
just, I'm sorry, even if it's just a period?
Yes, any alteration to that initial extraction with that number, it immediately would change.
So if you have an item, a computer or a phone, and you put it through the GrayKey program, and you do an extraction, a copy, where do you store that copy of information if it's not on the phone that you originally have? What do you do with it?
So once the program pulls that information, we have to place it onto our secure server at the office, and we'll take any of the files that were given via the extraction process, and it's saved there for us.
And so you copy it on another link or another digital file?
Yes, we'll save it to the server at the district attorney's office.
Can it be put on a physical item, like a zip drive or a hard drive?
Yes.
If you put that download onto a zip drive or hard drive, how will you know if that information on the hard drive matches the same information you originally downloaded from the phone to the server through GrayKey?
Again, like I said, you could run the hash value of that file again to correlate it with the PDF that we were given once GrayKey has given us the information. So that's how you would know all the information is the same, nothing has changed.
So for example, if you download an iPhone and it has that digital fingerprint, hash value attached to it, and you make a copy or multiple copies, is the way to test whether or not those copies are exactly accurate is to look at the hash value of each copy?
Yes, and copying the zip file would not change the hash value. The only way it would change is if you physically went into it and deleted information somehow.
So now that you have the item, say for example an iPhone, and you've downloaded it through GrayKey, which is hardware and software, and it's on a digital file, can you just open it up and start reading it like a report or a book, or do you have to do something else to it?
No, once it's pulled into that zip file, it has to be opened into another program, which there are many forensic tools, but the ones at the office we use are Celebrate or Axiom. They're just two brands, and then those programs make that information readable so we can actually look at it.
So if you were to download a forensic copy and you were to open it up without using that subsequent software, would you be able to read or see anything that's on that data?
To be honest, I don't know because I've never opened one of those zip files to know what's actually in them.
After the extraction happens, after there's that copy made, did you mention this further software you would use to be able to actually read the data?
Yes, so that's Celebrate and Axiom. They're two different programs, but those programs will make the information readable.
Are those the programs that you typically use?
Yes, they are. And there's
All right, sorry about that, folks. Looks like we're having a bit of an issue with that stream. We apologize for that. And basically what we've been seeing all day is a little bit finickiness with the stream. So usually they come back pretty promptly. So once we can take you back to the Karen Reed retrial, we will certainly do so. We've also been watching here some live images from the Vatican as mourners are arriving to pay their respects to the late Pope Francis. And so now he is lying in state. Right now, at this very moment, this is St. Peter's Basilica. We know we're coming up on a funeral event that's going to be Saturday, so this will be, day one of 3 days of mourning, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday, the final goodbye for Pope Francis. As we told you Monday, the Pope died at the age of 88. It sounded like there was stroke that led to inevitably medical conditions, heart condition that was not able to be overcome by the 88-year-old pontiff, but we know that he had been ailing with other concerns in recent months as well, including a bout with double pneumonia. But his passing, nonetheless, a shock to the world who just saw him on Easter Sunday, making some remarks during an Easter Sunday Mass. And then we even spoke with some folks who are here from the Carolinas, visiting there in Rome and going to Vatican City, and they say that they were part of that Mass, and so they were able to see him. We spoke with a student who told us about, being able to take a selfie as the Pope passed by in his Pope mobile, and really just a lot of folks who were shocked to learn the very next morning that Pope Francis had passed away. So as we see here, this is basically open to mourners. We've got tens of thousands of folks who've been filing into St. Peter's Basilica throughout the day. He's going to lie in state for 3 days, and Pope Francis actually reformed his own funeral rites because a little bit of backstory on, when a pope takes his position as the leader of the Catholic Church, he gets to choose his name, usually choosing after a saint that he feels reflects his own beliefs and how he wants to be seen as a leader and as a human being. And so Pope Francis picked his name based on St. Francis of Assisi, who was actually is an interesting backstory for folks who are, familiar with this. Pope Francis of Assisi started off with a wealthy family and inevitably chose a life of poverty based on, a belief that he wanted to be a simple person. He wanted to serve the poor. He wanted to serve those who were most in need. St. Francis of Assisi also associated with environmental causes and kindness to animals. And so it's interesting. We saw Pope Francis choosing his name based after that. And a lot of the causes we saw him ending up, championing during his time, his 12-year tenure as the Pope, kind of reflected that. We heard him speaking out about, concerns with how immigrants were being treated in various places. We heard him speaking out about, environmental causes. And we also know that he was a simple person in the sense that he rejected a lot of the refinery that typically comes with, being leader of the Catholic Church. But anyways, as far as his funeral is concerned, he's continuing with those wishes to be seen and remembered as a simple man. So, for example, the coffin that we see here, it's not in an elevated platform. It's facing pews, kind of symbolizing he doesn't want to be elevated above anyone else. And I believe he's actually going to be buried off-site, if you will. I think it's Saint Mary Maggiore, or Saint Maria Maggiore is where he's actually elected to be buried, and it's because of the presence of the Virgin Mary there. And so we see kind of not only in life but also in his passing, his decision to try to continue as a simple person, a humble person. So we'll continue to watch the procession happening here. We've been seeing all sorts of cardinals, bishops, archbishops, canons, priests that have been partaking in various remembrances for Pope Francis throughout the week. So we saw rosaries being prayed, and for folks who are not familiar with, the act of praying rosary, if you're not Catholic, it's the beads where you usually kind of see them. They kind of look like a little circle with different sized beads, and then there's a cross at the end, and essentially it's you can say the rosary as many times as you want, on a normal basis, and usually kind of set your intention before you pray the whole rosary. For example, you can pray for a certain cause or pray for a certain clarity or whatnot. But in the case of the passing of the Pope, you pray for the respite of his soul, and that's so, what we were seeing, not only there in Vatican City, but around the globe. And it's actually worth mentioning, we have local services that the Charlotte Diocese is offering for folks. It's going to be at 7 o'clock, and I believe it's at the church in Huntersville. So bear with me, I'm just going to pull up those details just to double check here, because we got some detail on that last night. So St. Mark Catholic Church, for folks who are in the Charlotte area and beyond, this will be kind of the diocese official Mass for the Dead that they're hosting. And so they're inviting everyone who wants to come. And this will be dedicated to Pope Francis. So once again, St. Mark Catholic Church in Huntersville, 7 p.m. They've actually offered a live stream. So I hope that we'll be able to bring some of that to you during Live Impact News here on WCNC Plus in our 7 o'clock hour, because that's certainly when we kick things off again in the evening. And we'll just continue to watch here all of the pomp and circumstances, as you can see in the passing of Pope Francis. With that, I think we've got the Karen Reed trial back. So folks, thanks so much for bearing with us here on Live Impact News. We want to take you now live back to Boston, Massachusetts, where that retrial for Karen Reed is underway. It looks like we still have the Massachusetts State Police officer, State Trooper, who is testifying.
As I said, about 7 to 7:30 p.m.
Thank you. When you received that phone, did you have the passcode?
No, we didn't.
Without the passcode, what were your next steps?
So the phone was placed in our digital forensics lab until we could get the passcode. I was told that a family member was going to be bringing it in so we could download the device.
Did you ultimately get that passcode?
Yes, we did.
And do you remember when you received it?
January 31st, 2022.
After you received the passcode for Mr. O'Keefe's phone, can you walk us through the process of what you did?
Yep. So once the passcode's obtained, we'll unlock the phone and then plug it into GrayKey, and then it's able to pull the full information from it without having to guess the passcode.
How long does that take?
Again, depending on the size of the phone, a few hours.
After the information was downloaded, then what happened?
We'd place on our digital evidence server at the DA's office, and then if the phone is evidence, it would go into evidence. If it was a consent, we'd give it back to the person who gave it to us immediately.
Did this phone go into evidence?
Yes, it did.
When you downloaded the information through GrayKey, which you said was the hardware and software, does it produce a report with that digital imprint?
Yes, it does. It produces a report from the time you plug it in to the process it completes, and then the amount of data, and then, like I said, that digital fingerprint hash value at the end.
And did you do that with this phone, Mr. O'Keefe's
Yes,
phone? May I
did.
approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Highlight. I'm going to show you a document, sir.
Okay, sorry. Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Did you show it to Mr. Alessi?
I'm sorry. My apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm showing you a document. Can you look at both pages, please?
Yes. Okay.
Do you recognize that document?
Yes, this is the...
I'll just ask you a couple more questions if you don't mind. What is it?
It's the GrayKey progress report that they give once the phone extractions are completed.
Do you recognize that as the report that is attributed to John O'Keefe's phone?
Yes.
And does that document have that digital imprint, the digital fingerprint that you were talking about?
Yes, so it's in, yeah, so it's here on the back. I just want to see if it was in two places. But it would be here for the, sorry, it's got cut off, but.
Why don't I put it up for an exhibit so that
Okay.
you can share it?
Okay.
I'll ask you some questions.
Okay.
I'd like to introduce this as an exhibit, please. No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Exhibit 18, so March.
May I show that exhibit to the jury? May I approach the witness to show him the pointer?
Yes.
On this top button will be the pointer. The middle button will change the screen. So skip to the top button, please. Can you walk us through what this report means?
Yep, so here at the top, here it is. Again, it says Great Key Progress Report, and then it gives the report generation, date and time, and it is in UTC, which is, get the exact definition, Universal Time Coordinates, I believe. So you'd have to minus 4 or 5 hours depending on daylight savings time. So this one would have been January's -5. 16/10 will be 1 noon, 12 o'clock for the actual time on the 31st. As we go down, device name is Johnny. The software version is the Apple iOS that was running at the time. The model number, iPhone 11. And then if you were to look up, the N104AP is also a model number. The unique device ID. This one is what Great Key assigns to the zip file that it creates. Serial number of the phone, the unique chip ID, the Wi-Fi address, the Bluetooth address, and then the phone number. And then there's more information underneath.
Could we scroll that, please? Thank you.
This here is the IMEI, which is the International Mobile Equipment Identifier. It's not uncommon now to have multiple of those identifying numbers. The data partition size of the device, which is 83 gigabytes. The lock state, if the phone was locked, it would say locked. This one is unlocked, so we had the passcode. This was the Great Key Agent version for the software. And then this is the last time that the phone was backed up via iTunes or iCloud. This is the owner's name. You can have anything in this, but his phone had John O'Keefe set as the iPhone owner name, and then the different accounts attributed to the phone.
Okay. Can you show us where the digital fingerprint is?
Yep, it's down. So that, the top part here is literally every time when it's plugged in to every process that it completes until the progress report is generated. Here, there's the full file system was created on this date and time, and then even though the partition size was 82 gigabytes, it actually pulled 125 gigabytes of data. Underneath this, if you're on the next page, is that unique fingerprint right here. So it has a SHA-256 and an MD5. They're just two versions of hashing to show that the file, the unique fingerprints, and that's what these numbers are here. So there's one for the image of the extraction, and then one for the keychain for the other documents that Great Key creates.
And you mentioned that if anything has changed, even a period, that number and letter sequence will change as well?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Did you have an opportunity to download and extract any other phones?
Yes.
At some point, did you have an opportunity to download and extract a phone from the defendant?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Do you remember when you received that phone?
I got the phone the same time as I got Mr. O'Keefe's phone on the 29th at around 7:30 at night.
And so you received both phones at the same time
Yes,
from the same people?
correct.
Trooper Buchanan?
Yes,
Trooper Proctor?
yes.
What did you do with that phone?
Again, that was brought down to the digital forensics lab for holding until we could get into it, or a warrant was written, or whatever legal process was going to be done, so we could get that information.
Do you secure it?
Yes, that room is locked with keycard access that only myself and 2 others have, and it's also alarmed.
Do the case officers or investigators that aren't part of your unit have access to those items?
No, the only ones that had access were myself, Trooper Connor Keefe, and then the director, Samantha Vogt. She's a civilian that runs our lab.
Okay. And at that point, were you able, after there was process, were you able to get into the phone at first?
No, it wasn't supported by Gray Key, the phone model and number.
What do you mean it wasn't supported?
So the software, even if we had a search warrant, we plugged it in, Gray Key wouldn't be able to recognize it because it just wasn't supported at that time.
When you say it wasn't supported, does this have anything to do with a passcode?
For both. So we didn't have the passcode, so because we didn't have it, it wasn't supported for us to download that information from the device.
If you had a passcode, would it have been supported?
Yes, it would have been.
So is there a process when you have a phone that you don't have a passcode for to be able to access the content of the phone?
Yes, that's correct. We have to wait until we either have the passcode or the software and hardware is supported for the device where it can try to guess the passcode.
So let me ask you some questions about software. In forensic data analysis, does software change frequently?
Constantly.
When the software changes, does it advance?
Does the software get better?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
At the time you first had the defendant's phone, the software you had was unable to access the contents?
That is correct.
What do? Do you look for other software or do you wait for updates? What's the process?
If there is another software out there, we will use it to try to get the information. If not, we are at the mercy of waiting for the developers to come up with the information for us.
Did you wait in this case?
Yes, we did. We had to wait.
Ultimately, did software advance so that without a passcode you were able to access?
Yes.
How long did you have to wait before you were able to access?
I believe it was July of 2022 that the software had been upgraded enough that it was able to brute force or guess her passcode for the device.
And where does the device remain until you're ready to try again?
In that locked digital forensics lab.
So when the software updates and advances, do you know that it will be successful, or you plug it in and you try?
No. So on Gray Key, they have like a link where you can click and it brings up a whole matrix, so it shows every make, model of phone and then the software associated with it, and it says it can do a partial download, a full download, a password guess, and it tells us. So when there's a new update, we'll check that to make sure that the devices we have can be accessed.
Did you make an attempt to have the software access the phone without a passcode?
Objection, Your Honor. Would me approach, please?
Okay, folks, we are getting another break here. It looks like another recess in the Karen Reed retrial. For folks who have been following along with us today here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, we've been dipping in and out of day 2 now of the Karen Reed retrial. This has been a pretty emotional day from what we've seen with some of the testimony today. And so as soon as they come back, of course, we'll try to bring you back there. But just a bit of a backstory. Karen Reed, this is out of Boston, Massachusetts, accused of killing her police officer boyfriend by backing over him with a car. She actually went to trial already. That trial ended in mistrial in July, so this is a second attempt now to conclude those court proceedings. And we know that she faces multiple charges here in this case, the same charges, in fact, as the first trial itself. So as soon as we get that feedback with some activity happening, we will bring you back there. Meantime, we want to just kind of recap some of the big topics that we're watching today, and also some potential things that we might see coming down the pike over this next hour, and maybe even longer, depending on if everything runs on time here, as far as the feeds we're watching. But regardless, if we get to it in live impact news, we'll have it for you then. But if we don't, we'll get it to you on our evening newscast coming up on WCNC Plus, which is why we always ask folks to keep it here, as long as they can, just because you never know when we're going to pop in with new updates. So obviously, Karen Reed, that's going to be a day, day 2 here, something that will pop in and out of as we go on throughout the day. We've also been keeping an eye on a very nasty wildfire that's burning in Ocean County, New Jersey. So we've been getting some spectacular aerial shots from our crews up there, and a little bit of perspective on just how quickly this wildfire grew. We actually first brought you coverage and live aerials of this fire here on Live Impact News around this time yesterday. It was actually closer to the 2 o'clock hour. And if we had folks, some of the same folks who are joining us now who were with us, back then, you might remember we first told you that this fire started it was around 100 acres when we first showed you those aerial images, and now we're up to 12,000 acres. So it grew very, very quickly. And it's just been kind of stunning to see not only the rapid growth in size, but also the impacts that we've been watching here. And it looks like there is some more containment at this point, which is some good news. But the fire crews, they said that they've been up against a lot of concerns as far as the conditions. So much like here in the Carolinas, we've been talking about wildfires a lot. They've been dealing with a drought too up there in the Northeast, apparently. That's what we've been hearing. They've been dealing with gusty winds, and they've also been dealing with, the issues with some of the debris in the land that they're trying to cover. Some perspective on the actual area where this is burning. We mentioned this is Ocean County, so this is north of Atlantic City, but this is an area where we're seeing there is a lot of woods, and it's near a preserve from what we understand. So while there were some evacuations, which thankfully it sounds like all the evacuations are done, this is mostly, from what we're hearing, largely a not as populated area as you might expect, being so close to some larger cities. Speaking of larger cities, it does sound like there could be an air quality alert for New York City and other big cities around that area. So we'll get back to that as soon as we get aerials on that. We also want to talk about some developments right now, and we're getting some insight too here on Live Impact News. So this is an ongoing saga that we've been watching here in North Carolina, and quite frankly nationwide, in the sense that this is the last undecided race from this past November election, and it continues on with more and more court activity, if you will. So we wanted to bring in North Carolina Democratic Party here representatives. We have Kat Lawson and Anderson Clayton here to talk about the situation with Allison Riggs and Jefferson Griffin. And for folks who might not have gotten the latest update here, this federal appeals court now has temporarily blocked election officials now from contacting voters who had disputed ballots. And this is a 2-to-1 decision that we saw, granting the stay request of Democratic incumbent Allison Riggs. So let's bring in Kat Lawson and Anderson Clayton now. Can you both hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we can.
Fantastic. All right. So this has been lengthy, to say the least, and we've seen a lot of back and forth in the courts at this point. What is the position here of North Carolina Dems as far as not only the length of this process, but also how this is kind of playing out now in the court system with ways that certain ballots are being challenged?
I think we're proud to be able to see the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals uphold a stay in this process to be able to make sure that voters are heard and making sure that, the process is able to play out in the way that it needs to through the courts. But this has been an extremely long and drawn out process for a reason, because Republicans believe that they can litigate away a loss. And for folks that have not followed this court case for the last 6 months, Jefferson Griffin lost a seat to North Carolina Supreme Court Justice Allison Riggs by 734 votes out of 5.5 million votes cast. And instead of conceding the election like he should have done, and like every other Republican that lost the election cycle in North Carolina and the down ballot did in November, he chose to turn around and challenge over 67,000 voters across the state of North Carolina, most of which that are being challenged now and that have been allowed to have this cure process potentially go into effect are military voters that have served our country, and are being challenged right now by someone who has also used the same method of absentee ballot and form that they did. Jefferson Griffin himself has been a military and overseas voter. And so it is wild right now to see Republicans challenge election results over 6 months after the election should have already been over with.
Now, we are hearing from, the Griffin camp and the GOP that, this is an effort to try to make sure that only legal votes are counted. It appears as though, throughout the court process here, eventually we saw that there are some ballots that have been declared that they shouldn't have been counted. Overseas voters who apparently never lived in the U.S., but parents who were declared North Carolina residents. Do you think that, that ruling disqualifies some of the argument that there were only legal ballots being counted, or what is your, response to that decision?
So there's a couple different problems with the way that Griffin and Republicans are framing these challenges. So first of all, Griffin, especially as somebody who is a sitting judge and who is wanting to be a Supreme Court justice, should know that there are ways that you are allowed to challenge voters and challenge the eligibility of a voter. And he hasn't been doing that the right way. And so even if there was any truth to his claims, which there's not, he missed deadlines. He's doing it wrong, frankly. And he's also picking and choosing who he challenges in order to get a win, not because he actually cares about the integrity of North Carolina's voter rolls. If he cared about those issues, he could have and should have filed this lawsuit, filed these claims before the election happened. But in fact, when Republicans did file a lawsuit with these exact same arguments before November, they were told by a federal court that they were still too late. It was still too close to an election, and they weren't going to be allowed to bring these challenges in federal court before November. And they had to kind of live with voters as they existed for this particular election cycle. That wasn't good enough for him. So he decided to go ahead and just repackage that exact same theory and bring this lawsuit now. So first of all, he's already shown that he is willing to ignore standard processes and rules, which are fundamentally the things that we want judges to care about and to enforce for everybody, not just for the people for whom it's convenient and who are on their partisan side. But separate from that, there's not a single voter in this challenge list that Griffin has actually produced any evidence showing that they are ineligible to vote. These are U.S. citizens. These are North Carolina residents. They are people who satisfied the laws that were in place in November of 2024. And he has completely failed to prove otherwise. And it is his job to actually produce proof here. Instead, he's relying on technical interpretations of the law that are brand new, that are novel, that were not in place for him when he voted in the past, that were not in place in prior election cycles, in order to, again, specifically target voters from a handful of counties and try to get them to not vote. And for the folks that he claims are people who have never lived in North Carolina, obviously, we don't know. We haven't actually looked into all of them, but there has been a lot of reporting saying that it's just bad data on his part. He's relying on shoddy research and bad data to make these claims, and then basically saying nobody should be allowed to call him on it or look behind to see if he's telling the truth before these votes get thrown out.
Now, we've brought coverage to our viewers here on Live Impact News here on WCNC Plus of some of the pro-Riggs rallies and various coverage that we've had, related to this ongoing saga. One of the things that sticks out to me was, quite emotional, plea from Riggs to, end this whole situation. And, the fact that, it sounded like by her perspective and many others at some of these rallies that there were much larger implications, that what's going on is really not about just this one race, that there could be, larger consequences and implications for elections going forward based on what happens here.
Absolutely. That's what Republicans are doing, using North Carolina to see how much that they can push a legal precedent. And they're using friendly courts that are Republican dominated to be able to do it. The North Carolina Court of Appeals, Democrats sit at a 12-3 minority on that bench right now. And so it's not surprising when you see a court that Jefferson Griffin sits on uphold a decision to keep him and to give him an election seat right now. And it's not surprising to see the North Carolina Supreme Court, where we sit at a 5-2 minority right now, and Justice Riggs recused herself from this case, to be able to see that play out. And what we're having right in the state is being able to see these challenges utilized in other states going forward in other election cycles. It's not just about North Carolina in 2024. It is about Pennsylvania and Michigan and Georgia and every other state in the country that Republicans would like to litigate away their losses in, versus actually accept what voters voted for at the ballot box. Trying to subvert democracy is the number one honestly strategy right now that I can see from the Republican Party about how they plan to win elections in the future, and Democrats have got to be there and be able to stop it.
So I guess as far as what comes next, we know, as we just mentioned, that this appeals court, it's a temporary block that we're seeing on officials inevitably contacting voters to let them know that they need to resolve some issues with that. But what comes next, and what would be your, I don't want to say your next steps, because I know you probably don't want to share too much of that, but what will be happening in this situation, going forward?
Well, best case scenario going forward is Jefferson Griffin concedes, and he does what he should have done back in November, or at the very least back when the recounts were all finished, and acknowledge that Justice Riggs beat him fair and square. And he could stop this right now, and he should stop this right now. Assuming he doesn't, we're now in front of the Eastern District in federal court. So we are finally at a stage in this lawsuit where we are dealing with the real issues. So Griffin is now needing to actually explain for the first time why it is that he thinks that these challenges do not violate the Constitution. We believe he's going to be unsuccessful at that. We're going to be able to successfully explain to Judge Myers, and then if we need to the Fourth Circuit, that picking voters from 6 counties to challenge their votes is a violation of equal protection, and trying to change the rules of an election after that election is already finished and 6 months after that election has been finished is a violation of due process. And so we believe that we're going to win those issues, and that will be, at that point, that will have to be the end of it. At some point, Griffin is going to have to accept the loss that he rightfully earned back in November.
For folks who are watching this and, are thinking, what should I be doing? Let's just say they're a North Carolina voter and they're seeing this and they're like, I think I might be falling under this category of, my vote is being challenged. What do you recommend folks do on that front? As far as every other person, every other voter, do you have recommendations that you are telling folks what to do as far as, either not only just influencing the outcome of the situation, but just going forward in general?
Right now, what we're asking folks to do is sign up on ncdp.org/protectthevote, because we're going to be notifying everyone through rapid response mechanisms about if a cure process goes into effect and what they would need to do in order to cure their ballot. Because as of right now, we do not have that process laid out from the State Board of Elections or from the courts at this moment in time. And so we want to make sure that any guidance we are giving to a voter is correct guidance. It is going to make sure that their vote is securely counted and valid after we go through this process in full. So we're asking people to make sure they sign up on our website, and we're going to keep people updated. Justice Riggs is also making sure that she gives weekly updates and are alerting people via social media. So if you were somebody that would rather follow somebody and get your media that way too, please feel free to follow her on all of the social accounts, and we'll make sure to keep you posted. The State Board of Elections did release the list of the Guilford County voters that Jefferson Griffin is targeting and would be impacted if the cure process was to go forward. So if you are a Guilford County voter, you can check the State Board of Elections website and see if your name is on the list there. Otherwise, though, there are still potentially caught up in the courts right now 5 other counties that could be impacted by Griffin's complaints if the federal courts let this go through. And so the State Board of Elections has not released that list yet, though.
Okay. All right. Sounds like much more to come here on this ongoing saga. Kat Lawson, Anderson Clayton, we appreciate your time and you taking a few moments here to join us here on Live Impact News and share more about your perspective with our viewers. So keep us posted on your front. And of course, we'll keep folks posted on anything that comes out of the Griffin camp as well. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Okay, so with that, we want to, of course, remind folks that we have a full body of reporting on this ongoing saga on WCNC.com and the WCNC Charlotte mobile app. Our Julie Kay in particular has been very busy following every single twist and turn in this saga, so you can find that body of reporting on our website once again, as well as the latest information that we just talked about today as far as the latest decision, the Federal Appeals Court temporarily blocking election officials from contacting the voters with disputed ballots, essentially granting the stay request of Allison Riggs here, who's asking federal judges to throw out the recent rulings that the appellate courts made that were largely favoring her Republican opponent and challenger Jefferson Griffin. From the Griffin camp, once again, we're hearing largely the commentary that these efforts we're seeing from the Republican Party that they say are only about ensuring legal votes, making sure that those are being counted. Certainly a contentious issue, the one that continues well beyond, as we mentioned, beyond the November election. Okay, it looks like we've got Karen Reed trial back. We've been, once again, day 2, dipping in and out of the feeds here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Looks like we've got new testimony happening. So previously we were seeing a state trooper with Massachusetts state trooper, and it looks like this might be a different gentleman now. Let's listen in.
Answer, yes.
Did you talk to her that morning?
Not beyond probably a hey or hi or something like that.
Do you know whether she ever gave you any items?
I know at one point I had to exchange whether it was a purse or a cell phone or some object from Miss Reed.
At some point that morning, did you have an opportunity to meet with the defendant?
Yes.
Where did you first see her?
We were in the process of getting her to go to the hospital.
When you say we, who was helping you?
That would be, my partner, obviously, Jason Becker, and then my lieutenant, Greg Woodbury.
Where was she when you first saw her?
Somewhere outside in the street.
Do you recognize her in the courtroom today?
I do.
And could you identify her, please?
Yes.
Please. You're pointing to a person. Can you give just a very limited?
The woman standing, sitting in between these two gentlemen here.
Did you interact with her that morning? Have a conversation?
Yes.
When you first started speaking to her, what was her demeanor?
Pretty upset, crying. She was. We had a Section 12 in hand, which is a medical order or a police order to be taken to the hospital for a psychological evaluation.
Okay. Did you discuss that with her?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you ask her to follow you or to come with you?
Yeah, she did.
And did that happen?
To the ambulance, correct.
So you went to the ambulance with the defendant?
Yeah.
And was Mr. Becker with you?
Yes.
What happens when you get to the ambulance?
I mean, so it was snowing, and it was more to kind of just get everybody into a nice, warmer location where it wasn't snowing or windy or anything like that. And we were discussing that, we have a Section 12 that states regardless of if you want to go, we have to take you to the hospital. She was arguing that she really didn't need to go to the hospital, and we were trying to convince her to go to the hospital because once the Section 12 is written, it doesn't matter what the patient says, we have to get them there one way or the other, whether it's cooperatively restrained or chemically restrained with sedatives or anything.
It's not a voluntary order?
It is not a voluntary order.
Inevitably, did the defendant agree to go with you to the hospital?
Yes.
When you were going to return to the hospital, was the defendant placed in the back of the ambulance where a patient would be?
Correct. So how we operate for anybody that's a Section 12 or anybody that is under the influence of anything, we always operate with 2 people in the back of the ambulance. So myself and my partner, Jason Becker, were back there. And then we had to take somebody from the engine company and have them drive to the hospital, and that was Sam Park.
Sam Bach?
Park, P-O-C-H.
Thank you. Before you left, before you started to drive away from Fairview, were you having any conversations with the defendant?
Yes.
Can you share with the jury what those conversations were about?
So we were talking. She was upset. She kept asking if there was any chance her husband could be alive, and even sitting outside in the snow with no coat on for many hours.
Did she indicate what many hours meant? How many?
No.
How often did she raise the issue of whether or not, or how long he could be out for?
I'd say at least 3 to 4, maybe more.
Part of your job is to care for patients?
Correct, yes.
Was part of your job to try to get them to the location safely?
Yes.
And sometimes you treat patients with physical injuries, don't you?
Many, oftentimes physical injuries, yes.
Are you trained when you're trying to transport somebody on how to interact with them?
Yes. Well, sometimes if they're upset, in this instance, she kept asking if there was any chance that he could be alive, and that we really didn't know what was the patient that Ambulance 1 took. We really didn't know what his condition was, and but figuring that it was a hypothermia type case, being the conditions outside, we were trying to give her hope that there is a saying in the medical field, you're not dead until you're warm and dead. And I was basically, there's stories of children falling through ice and falling into rivers and being underwater for multiple hours and coming out, being resuscitated and having no neurological deficits. So I was telling her those stories just kind of to say, look, let's be sure we'll get to the hospital, we'll find out more there. Just trying to give her any sort of hope that her husband would be alive.
Can you describe her demeanor when she was in the back of the ambulance with you during your interactions with her?
She would go from pretty upset, crying. One instance where she kept saying, I can't take care of these kids, I can't take care of these kids, they're not my kids, and they're not his kids. And at that point I understood who Ambulance 1 had taken, because John was pretty well known in the town for taking on the care of his niece and nephew. So I said, listen, it's okay. It looks like you have a very strong support system. And then Miss Reed said, do you know Carrie Roberts? And she had been crying, and she picked her head up and said, do you know Carrie Roberts? And I said, a matter of fact, I do. And she said, anybody who knows Carrie Roberts wouldn't say that about her. And I said, well, she did come to out at early in the morning to look for your husband in a blizzard. And she just rolled her eyes and put her head back down. And and I thought it was just bizarre.
Objection, move to strike.
I'll strike that last sentence.
Would you describe her demeanor as even through that ride?
No.
How long did it take to get to the hospital?
I mean, you can refer to my partner's ambulance trip report. I'm sure it has the.
Do you have it right with you, sir?
I do not know.
Well, let me ask you.
I would guess about 15 to 20 minutes, somewhere in there.
You don't have an exact memory?
No.
When you get to the hospital with a patient under these circumstances, do you leave them at the door?
No, no.
What do you do?
We have to hand off care, so we go in and we have to give a report to a nurse to let them know what their condition is, why they're coming to the hospital, and what we found taking them to the hospital.
So we've been hearing some more testimony, day 2 of the Karen Reed retrial in the Boston, Massachusetts area. We'll continue to bring you back to these live images from the courtroom throughout Live Impact News here on WCNC+. Meantime, we do have to get to some brand new developments. We wanted to give folks an update. If you were joining us a little while ago in the last hour here on Live Impact News, we had those aerial shots from South Florida where the Wilton Manors fire crews were working on a house fire. We just got a quick update here, and I wanted to share it for folks since we promised that we would. And we certainly were very concerned that there could have been people inside the home at the time. Fort Lauderdale fire officials now reporting that there were actually injuries reported. We don't know how severe those injuries are, and we don't know how many people were injured, but we do have confirmation now from fire officials there that folks were injured on this house fire, once again, Wilton Manors, which is north of Fort Lauderdale. So as we get more details on that, we'll certainly keep you posted. And if we happen to get any new live images, we'll bring you back there to South Florida. Meantime, we do want to turn to some of our bigger headlines, too, of the day in the Carolinas. And we are talking in some respects about Kannapolis growth tonight. And we have kind of an interesting development that we're seeing with city leaders there and folks in charge of planning as the city is growing at quite a rate. So let's bring in Walker Lawson, who's been digging around on this topic for us today. So Walker, thanks so much for joining us.
Happy to be back.
Thank you. Thank you. We love having you here at Live Impact News. So you went to Kannapolis and you're learning about the potential of I don't want to say too much growth, but there's a tension that's underway and some decisions that have to be made.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually came to this because a family friend of mine is a realtor and mentioned there are so many homes and places popping up in Kannapolis. So me being development and transportation, I started digging around and trying to see what is coming to the forefront in Kannapolis. And I saw last week they had a proposal for about 324 townhomes in city limits. And so it failed being approved, but it does still have to go before city council to make a decision. So once I was up there and started talking to them, they said that they've really just seen this explosion in years past of developers coming forward and wanting to propose. And anywhere you drive, you'll see new townhomes, new apartments. And a lot of this, there was an old textile mill there that closed years ago that we previously reported on. And a lot of people thought that was going to be the death of Kannapolis. And the town really started to invest in revitalization. And they put that baseball stadium downtown. And a lot of businesses started creeping in. And with the growth we're seeing in Charlotte, it expands outward. And that's now starting to make its way to Kannapolis. So with all these developments, they now have basically made it to where, and this was brought to my attention when I was looking into this townhome that was trying to be proposed, that the city's made the decision that basically because their sewer capacity is not at its max, but it's starting to push the threshold. And the group that they get their sewer from is working on expanding it, but they can't do it right now. They're already doing 2 different expansions from my takeaway in conversations with planning and zoning. So they're having to just be mindful of what's being approved. And right now their priority is commercial because they have a lot of residential that's already coming through. And so builders that are coming before the city are getting their approval and getting what they can, but they have to wait several years in order to build. And so it's not a pause on growth. It's not stopping people from coming forward and developing, because Kannapolis still wants more people to call this area home. It's just interesting that builders are coming forward and basically are making the decision that we want to build, and we know it's going to take 3 to 5 years that we'll have to wait, but it's prime real estate, basically. So it's an interesting change that's happening in Kannapolis. I personally haven't seen anything like it. I covered development in South Carolina. And so it's interesting to see that not stopping it, not slowing it down, but there's a lot of growth, and a lot of people are wanting to call that area home, like many other places that we're seeing in the Charlotte area.
Yeah, I mean, Kannapolis, certainly a pretty area. You mentioned the ballpark. I've gone seen some games there, and it's a great area, you know, to kind of just enjoy in general, not just the ballpark, but around there.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can certainly see why folks might be moving out there. And I mean, it really kind of brings up a larger dynamic that we see maybe in just the Charlotte area at large, like the greater Charlotte area, because this is a conversation, whether, you know, we see consequences like this where it might be a little bit slower to get something approved now at this point, where we see communities across the board here having to make decisions about developments, what's coming, what will be approved, and how do we handle infrastructure as we do grow really quickly. It's kind of interesting to think too how, I think it was yesterday when Governor Josh Stein was giving his, I think it was a State of the Economy update, he talked about how North Carolina is the top third most fastest growing state in the country, and so we're seeing that kind of playing out right here in our backyard. So as far as your piece for us tonight, because I believe we have you coming up here on WCNC Plus at 6 for folks who are going to tune into the newscast here on streaming. What will you be bringing us? I mean, who else have you spoken with, and you know, what will we see from your piece?
Yeah, so you'll see a lot from the planning director, because it's really them explaining what they're seeing, because they don't want to concern people. They don't want people to freak out and think, oh my gosh, we've hit our max, we can't take people. But it's a serious, you know, they're having to sit here and think, okay, this is giving us a breath of fresh air to almost stop for a second and process what's happening. You'll hear from a business owner also. I spoke with her, and she chose to come to Kannapolis. She lives in Concord, but set up a business in Kannapolis right when the revitalization process was underway. And she said it's incredible to see growth. And one of the standout things, you know, when I talked to the planning director, they have 6,000 residential units that are pending right now.
Oh, wow.
So that just puts into perspective the amount of proposals. When you look at Kannapolis, it's different than, for example, Huntersville, where there's a lot of space already taken up. Driving into Kannapolis, like you said, it's beautiful. You're getting rural, but then you get into the city and you see the baseball field and you see all of these large buildings. I can't really explain the sensation of driving in there, but there's a lot of space out there. And so they're seeing these proposals come in left and right. And so I think this is giving them a beat to take a breather for just a second and see it, but just also kind of highlighting what Kannapolis has gone through in its evolution for the last couple of years is what I'll touch base on also tonight.
Yeah, I mean, certainly a lot of changes. I know that we always say, you know, chances are you won't run into a native Charlottean, but they do exist, and they know, yes, you, and you probably know what it looked like, you know. 10 years ago versus now, and just so many changes across the board with all of our communities.
Absolutely, yeah. It's crazy to see firsthand.
Yeah. Well, keep us posted on the dialogue, because I'm sure after this point, you know, we'll have your report, but I'm sure there will be some sort of follow-up afterwards, because this seems like it's a dialogue that just continues. It begs to be discussed, you know, further.
I mean, there's development everywhere.
Indeed.
All across our viewing area.
Indeed, indeed. All right, Walker Lawson, thanks so much. Once again, folks, tune in 6 o'clock to see Walker's piece, and stay tuned here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Obviously, any potential updates we'll bring you on that piece, you know, in the coming weeks or months. Let's go ahead and turn back now to Boston, Massachusetts. Thanks so much, Walker. Boston, Massachusetts, we've been watching the Karen Read retrial. We still have the same gentleman here giving us testimony as when we left off, and this is day 2. Let's take you there now and listen in live. You're watching Live Impact News.
Like to get less information from a patient before you transport them?
So it would be pertinent information. For instance, if somebody was, and they had, stents placed in their heart, we wouldn't talk about how they had their tonsils removed when they were 12.
Okay, fair enough. But getting more information is not going to negate the crucial information that you do get, correct?
It certainly could in a critical stage. If there was a critical patient, we wouldn't typically overburden passing off a report to a nurse or a doctor with non-pertinent information.
Okay. It's not your testimony that getting less information is always better than getting more information, is it?
I would say getting pertinent information is better than having...
That wasn't my question. My question was, is it your testimony that getting less information is always better than getting more information, sir?
I would not agree with that, no.
Okay, thank you. Now, the medical history that was taken from Ms. Reed listed her as having multiple sclerosis, right?
I want to see it, Saiba, please.
Okay, so folks, we've hit a recess again here with the Karen Reed retrial, so bear with us here. We're going to bring you back there as soon as we see more developments from the courtroom there in Boston, Massachusetts. We've got a few feeds that we're watching right now, and Jeb, if I could you tell me what is in Router 4?
It's the ED.
Oh.
Router 4 is a shooting.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, this is actually just now coming into our Live Impact News studio, so I just happened to notice it and I wanted to make sure that we were bringing folks the very latest, and we're going to gather some more information. Just give us a couple of moments.
We can bring it up right here.
Okay.
It's
I'm going to get your mic on.
Yeah. This is out of Fairfax County, Virginia. Right now, our NBC affiliate station is currently monitoring a possible shooting there in the road. So you can see the police response. You can see it looks like there's some debris from that car there. And we're at Fairfax County, Virginia. I'm working on putting up this super here.
Oh my. Okay, so Jeb, I am getting some updates here from our sister station, WUSA. Is this where the feed is coming from, by the way?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Well, this is coming from WRC, but
Got it.
From same
Okay.
helicopter.
So unfortunately, we are seeing 2 officers have been shot. This is information, once again, coming from WUSA, our sister station in that area, Fairfax County, Virginia, specifically Fair Oaks. That's more specific than the community that we're speaking of. We're seeing 2 officers shot during a traffic stop. This happened today. As you can see, a pretty active scene, as our producer Jeb pointed out. Looks like they have got the crime scene tape up and even a vehicle, perhaps the vehicle in question, there in the roadway. And we're hearing, in addition to the 2 officers who were injured with this shooting, it looks like a 3rd person has been taken to the hospital. It's not clear if that person is the suspect or if it was another person who was involved in this scene. But police can actually confirm that there is a suspect in custody. But once again, we don't know if that person in custody is also the 3rd person who went to the hospital. If you're familiar with this area, this is Majestic Lane near Greenbrier. This is Fair Oaks, Virginia, as we mentioned before, so Fairfax County. And if I could share a little bit more of the information we're getting about the officer injuries, it sounds like the injuries are not life-threatening. Now, I mean, that isn't to say that they aren't serious of nature or anything like that, but it sounds like there is an imminent threat of death because of these injuries from this shooting for these police officers. We note that, of course, what we're seeing live here, that there are some closures in this area. Once again, for folks who are familiar with this part of Fairfax County, this part of Virginia, Majestic Lane is going to be closed between Route 50 and Meadow Hill Lane. Police asking folks to avoid that area. Now, unfortunately, what we're seeing for law enforcement in this area and really just the community at large, our team out that way is reporting that this isn't the first incidents of violence that has prompted a large police presence today. In fact, Fairfax officers had to go to a high school after a student was stabbed. And for a while, actually, in the background here on Live Impact News, we were watching our feeds to see if we saw anything about that incident. And so we do have a few more details to share about that situation. It sounded like there was a fight amongst students, and a 15-year-old stabbed a 16-year-old inside West Potomac High School. That happened early this morning. A student resource officer arrived there pretty promptly after, followed by police, and so we're waiting to hear more on that. But really, sounds like a very chaotic day for Fairfax County, the law enforcement there, for the community at large, certainly stirred by what happened at the high school earlier today, only to be followed up by this shooting scene that we are seeing live here on Live Impact News. We're getting close here towards the quarter hour of, before we switch over to our evening newscast for folks who are just joining us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We'll monitor this as long as we can and get you updates as much as we can as stuff comes into our newsroom. But, be assured that any new details we get that come within the 4 o'clock hour, so beyond our time here on Live Impact News, you'll be able to find that on our evening newscasts. What we do pretty seamless switch over to our evening news team on the desk at 4 o'clock, and so we'll try to keep you as abreast of the situation as we can throughout the evening. Just to recap what we've seen here, as we see law enforcement circling around this one car there on the shoulder of the roadway, and obviously road closures in place here. This was a traffic stop. This was the Fair Oaks area, Fairfax County, Virginia, and unfortunately 2 officers have been shot. We are hearing from police out there that fortunately these are not life-threatening injuries, but they are injuries nonetheless, and also, just to top it off, a very scary situation for law enforcement to have to deal with that, and for the community at large. We know a 3rd person has gone to the hospital. We don't know if that person is the suspect or if it's another person who just happened to be involved with the scene. But we do know that there is a suspect in custody, according to police. We've painted the picture of where this is. We talked about, Majestic Lane being called out as this area of concern. We are hearing from our producer, Jeb, that this does appear, based on what we're seeing with mapping in the area, to be a pretty dense shopping and residential area. It is near Greenbrier Town Center, and it looks like, this would be an area that we have folks passing through a lot this time of day, particularly as we're here getting close to 4 o'clock. Usually the evening rush, for a lot of communities nationwide can get started around 4, with the heart kind of rising around 5 o'clock. But we are pulling up some perspective for you as far as mapping, which we'll bring to you as soon as we can get that prepared. But we've got some delays, as you can expect, in the area with the blockages that we're seeing. So our producer Jeb showing us here. Yeah, okay. So thanks for doing that. Jeb is showing us the mapping between not only the scene there, which you see on the left-hand side of your screen, so that's the left dot, and then as you move towards the east, closer towards Alexandria, the right dot is actually the high school that we mentioned, where there was actually a stabbing earlier today. And, we talked about, for Fairfax County in general, this seems to be a very chaotic and probably a sad day. I would think, that whenever you have chaos in your community like that, you hear about law enforcement getting injured, while they're just trying to do their jobs. I mean, that always, hits your heart. And then, of course, the stabbing that we talked about that happened at a high school, one student reportedly stabbing another this morning just before 10 o'clock. This community has been through a lot today. As we're seeing here some of these live aerials, did want to point out, it looks like we're seeing maybe multiple agencies, just based on some of the uniforms that I'm seeing out there, and it looks like they've got potentially crime scene investigators, along with either officers, or they could be troopers who might be responding to the scene. The vehicle itself, I'm seeing a lot of debris around it.
It's weird, I'm looking at, what is that over the front left tire? Like, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
That's what I keep looking at.
You know, and again, you know, we're seeing this literally from, you know, hundreds of feet in the air. But it almost looks like, you know, a dollar's going to roll into the car. It could be a shield. I mean, it's just a very, very interesting. And the debris, if you look at, you know, it's kind of the left of the car, if you're coming towards the car on our right, you know, what is that? Like, that is so. It almost looks like they threw it from the car. It doesn't look like it came from the car.
Yeah, like it almost looks like it's items from the car.
Right.
Or, once again, yeah, it's tough to see from this angle. It almost looks like, I don't know if they had a backpack that had stuff in it.
Right, maybe they like dumped it out.
And it got dumped out.
Because you could see over there was a backpack.
Leaning on the tire.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of questions, but it does, when you see a lot of debris, kind of paint a chaotic scene.
Right, I mean, I can only imagine. They may have been searching for, I mean, again, this is all speculation, but, you know, they may have had reasonable cause to go through a bag, search for things, and the situation may have escalated from there. Again, we don't know.
I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get some more information from police. Okay.
Let me see if we can hear.
I'm just checking the Fairfax County police feeds just to make sure that they haven't put out any new information.
Right.
Looks like what we're seeing there is the same that we've just brought folks a few moments ago. Let's see, 4,000 block, Majestic Lane near Greenbrier. 2 officers shot while conducting a traffic stop, transported to a hospital, non-life-threatening condition, suspect in custody. Majestic Lane closed between Route 50 and Meadow Hill Lane. Use an alternate route. So I'll keep this feed up, just make sure that we're getting the very latest for folks watching at home.
And I've got a couple updates as well here. So according to NBC4 in Washington, it looks like the debris on the side is medical equipment. That's what their reporters are saying. So that may have been used on the officers who have been shot. The other thing we're learning within the last minute is Fairfax County Police Chief Kevin Davis is expected to speak soon.
Okay.
So we don't know when, we don't know what he's going to say, but police are saying they will be addressing the shooting soon.
Okay. And we'll just remind folks here, Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I know I mentioned this a moment ago, but we are getting close to our switch over to the evening news. We do plan on keeping you posted on this, even if the, you know, police chief arrives after 4 o'clock. We will get that in our shows in the evening newscast to make sure that you're staying up to date. We don't want to leave you hanging. We realize that this is a tough scene to see and to hear that 2 officers are shot and are trying to recover now. And there's just a lot of questions. We don't want to leave you hanging on that front. But it's certainly a developing situation here, and one where, as our producer Jeb pointed out, we are expecting some additional information not too far in the future. We will obviously keep an eye on, you know, how the scene itself plays out, because, you know, obviously we're getting close to the evening rush, and they are still in full investigation mode here. I mean, I'm just watching this crime scene officer, you know, going through the car, taking pictures.
Anytime soon.
Yeah, this will probably, you know, if I had to guess, probably take us into the heart of the rush hour commute for, you know, those folks that travel through that area. And Jeb, you pointed out the fact that there are shops around here. It looks like they might have residences. I don't know if those are apartments or townhomes.
Yeah, it looks like residences maybe on that far right, or excuse me, shops on that far right, and then apartments kind of on the left there.
Yeah, so people might be hopefully not hindered in getting home as well, but it looks like there could be some blockages to the actual community there that we're seeing on the left-hand side. And, you know, I'm sure for folks trying to maybe access the shops, there could be some difficulties there as well. It's a very large scene. Looks like they've got, you know, as far as the crime scene tape, it's spanning beyond the block at this point. You know, we see it up in the parking lots.
Yeah.
And all of those law enforcement vehicles, large and small. Look like they even had a heavy duty truck out there. I'm not sure what that was for, but
I think I may have seen, and again, I don't know the Fairfax County police force particularly well, but it looked like a mobile command unit.
That's what I was
that
thinking.
was a very large.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say SWAT, but it was definitely, you know, a special vehicle that they bring out perhaps for a situation like this. There you can see kind of a better look as the chopper is zooming out, and full blockage there of the roadway. And as we pointed out, perhaps a mobile command unit, we're not quite sure, but it's going to be just to the north, or I don't know which way we're oriented, but to the top of that crime scene tape across the road. It looks like they even have like a mast up.
Yeah, I mean, that whatever it is.
Like a live truck,
Right.
but it doesn't look like a news live truck to me. It looks like a police truck.
I definitely think I agree, but I have no idea what it would be. Yeah, we're getting a better look at the community now.
Yeah, so those are the shops in question. It does look like that there are some blockages to that, to the commercial area as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of cars there. I mean,
what a scary situation.
Gosh, this is so close
It's
to
really
so many
heart-stopping to get updates like that. Getting close to the 4 o'clock hour. I know we probably have new folks who are joining us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Perhaps you're getting ready to settle into the 4 o'clock news and you're joining us early, or maybe you're just popping us on, which we appreciate you coming in and joining us. We wanted to get you up to speed with what we're seeing right now. We've got live aerials from Fair Oaks, Virginia. This is Fairfax County, Virginia. A little bit it looked like to the west of the Alexandria area, to the west of Arlington, to kind of paint a picture of the general location where we're looking live right now. There was a traffic stop we're hearing that resulted in 2 officers getting shot. There is a third person, in addition to the officers, who is getting medical treatment at a hospital. We don't know if it's the suspect, but we know that a suspect is in custody. This is the 4000 block of Majestic Lane. And you can see, there we've popped up the, not only the roads, but, the perspective we're giving you is the left dot on this map is the shooting scene that we're seeing the live aerials of right now. We were just a moment ago. And then the right-hand side is a high school where there was actually a stabbing. And so all of this happening in Fairfax County all today.
Minutes apart.
Yeah, it's a tough day for folks there, just because, not only are we dealing with this here this afternoon, but it sounds like this morning there was a fight that happened at a school, West Potomac High School. And there was a 15-year-old who police say stabbed a 16-year-old inside the school, and a student resource officer was able to intervene, and then police ended up having to show up. So the police chief, I think you said his name was Kevin Davis,
yes.
Jeb, because you mentioned that police chief Kevin Davis is coming to give a media update on the shooting scene that we're seeing from the sky right now. But he was just over at the high school just a few hours ago, talking about what happens there and having officers have to respond to that scene.
Right.
So police here have been all over the place. And
what do you think that is? They have this car. I guess I didn't realize that before. I mean, they have this car.
That's a great call out, Jeb. Yeah, so there's a silver car for folks who are looking towards the left top of the screen
right
now.
Under the lights.
And it's under the traffic signals, and we're about to lose it, but it's roped off with crime scene tape. And I don't know if that's a second vehicle that was involved. I'm not positive, but it's obviously blocked off for a reason.
Right. I mean, they established a pretty set perimeter there.
Yeah, so we have that car, which once again is out of frame at this point. We now have fully here in the shot this, what we think is the primary vehicle, just based on how much police activity we're seeing around it. And now, as the scene has kind of evolved and we're watching them do the investigation, it does look like they're scouring that car. And I don't know what they're looking for, but when we first brought you in here on Live Impact News, all of the car doors were shut. Now they're all open, and we have investigators
combing through,
scouring this car, taking pictures, trying to get all the angles.
Is that a gun on the top of the car? Is that what that is?
It looks like there could be a firearm on top of the vehicle. I don't know if that is suspect related or if that is an officer gun.
I mean, it certainly looks like a gun.
It looks like a firearm.
It'd be a very odd place to put that. I mean, again, I don't know the general routine for investigations like this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know whose firearm that
Right.
is. And then, as we alluded to, Jeb was able to find some information about all the debris. And actually, I can see it now. It looks like the terminology is going to be off. I apologize, but looks like there's a ventilator,
Yeah.
or what the medic might use
I'm
as
seeing
a
some scissors that
respirator.
they cut gauze with.
Yeah, this is all medical equipment. And this is coming from reporting from another one of our affiliates out in this area. And so just keep in mind, obviously, because this is Virginia, it's the DMV area, so you might have different markets of news reporting on this right now, since it's, not too far from DC. It's, as we talked about, it's west of DC, west of Arlington, north and west of Alexandria is where this is going on. And yeah, there are a lot of folks who are taking an interest in what's going on. So we have a few minutes left here, folks. We're going to continue to scour our feeds to make sure that we're not missing any new information, so just bear with us. As I talked about before here on Live Impact News, 4 o'clock we switch over to our evening team, so you can stay up to date on the very latest, not just this situation, but also some of our bigger headlines that we've been following throughout the day as we recap everything on our 4 o'clock news. So if you keep it here on WCNC Plus, you'll be sure to get those updates during the evening news. And if we have some new folks who are kind of just discovering this concept from us, we're very excited about this. This is very unique in the sense that we've never done anything like this before, but we think that it holds a lot of value for you to be able to see these raw, unedited feeds like this, and to kind of learn about stories as they come into our newsroom and learn details as they come into our newsroom, just moments after they come in. So we're going to keep an eye on the feed. It looks like we might be seeing a little bit of freezing. We've had some issues, so we apologize with some of our feeds today. And so we're going to sit on this for just a moment. Okay, we've lost it. We'll get you back there in just a second as soon as we get the feedback. But, we just wanted to talk about the fact that not only would you expect, if you kept it here on WCNC Plus, our evening news update, but right at 7 o'clock, we're back here. So Jeb and I are back here 7 to 9, and we'll be bringing you everything that's happening this evening. This has been really a special endeavor for us to be able to, share news with you just like we are here in this raw, unedited form. We are trying to see if we're getting any new information here from police. We are expecting an update from the police chief once again. We don't have an ETA for his arrival there on the scene, but we do hope to get you updates and any. Okay, we got the feedback. Thank you. Okay, so we will be bringing you, at the very least, details from that. If there's a way for us to bring it to you live, we will. We'll try. But yeah, well, there we're seeing a closer look now. That is indeed an incident command unit. So, sometimes we see if police are expecting to be on scene for a while, they might set something up like this, just so crews have a bit of a home base. So, this is definitely indicating to us that this is probably going to be a closure for a few hours. They got a second mobile forensic lab that's showing up here. So I would just, if you know anyone in that area, I'd probably tell them that this is going to be a closure for a bit. Police are definitely hunkering down in this area. And, obviously with 2 officers shot, we'll be doing their due diligence to try to make sure they're gathering all the evidence that they can in this scene. I see something new in live, Jeb, in a different feed.
Really quickly before we leave?
Yeah, before we turn the page here to our 4 o'clock news, we just wanted to quickly pop back to New Jersey and just give you an update, because this wildfire that's in Ocean County has just been unbelievable. And we talked about how when we first brought this to you on Live Impact News in the 2 o'clock hour yesterday, the fire was 100 acres. And now New Jersey Forest Fire Service is saying it is 12,000 acres. It grew rather quickly. We know that a lot of the conditions, similar conditions that we've been seeing here in the Carolinas prompting our wildfires, is having an issue for these folks here trying to fight this fire. So drought, gusty winds, and the fact that they do have a lot of burning materials, if you will. This is near a preserve. This is going to be north of the Atlantic City area, and it is 35% contained. So improvements we're seeing